The Throne of the Mechas. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226 Bodyguard Mission. Xia Xingchen was recalled to Xia Star along with the Tangyang. He was called to the palace alone and met the new Emperor Qin Zhi, Prince Qinyuan, Princess Crossing and Princess Yu in a reception room. Emperor Qin Zhi personally told Xia Xingchen the purpose of his return. We have declared war on Nicholas. This is a large-scale, protracted and destined to be difficult war. In order to ensure that we can win this war, we have decided to unite all the forces that can be united. This includes the miners. Our empire has decided to temporarily cease fire with the Galactic Freedom Army and start a certain scale of cooperation. The one who represents the empire in negotiations with the Galactic Freedom Army this time is Princess Xingchen. According to our intelligence department, the top leaders of the Galactic Freedom Army are now hiding on the edge of the Death Star domain. Jaina took the initiative to ask you to protect him. You are also the guardian knight of Princess Crossing, and this is your unshakable responsibility. And as far as I know, you are also a miner, so you can better understand the psychology of the miners. Moreover, you have been to the Death Star domain half a year ago and are more familiar with it. Xia Xingchen, Jaina's safety is in your hands. Don't let us down. Yes, your majesty. Xingchen, in order to be more sure, I ask Knight Hao Cheng to go with you, so that you can cooperate more tacitly, and you must come back safely. Please rest assured, Princess Yu. Anyone who wants to hurt Princess Jaina must first step over my body. Prince Qinyuan also looked at Xia Xingchen. Boy, you are very strong, much stronger than me. So you have to come back alive. After I finish participating in the Nirvana trial, I must compete with you. I couldn't ask for more. Good job. Only in this way can you be qualified to be my brother-in-law. Qinyuan patted Xia Xingchen on the shoulder and said. Xia Xingchen and Qin Jaina's faces suddenly turned red, and Qin Zhi and Qin Fengzhi covered their mouths and laughed secretly. After leaving the palace, Xia Xingchen returned to the 1524 dormitory of the Imperial Military Command Academy and found that all his roommates were gone. After contacting Dai Ren, he learned that, although their dormitory was still preserved, they were all gone from school. Dai Ren was busy with the work of the Imperial Strategic Intelligence Department every day, while Hans Grandit joined the 1st Squadron of the 5th Fleet, stationed on Penglai Star, and became a logistics officer of the fleet. After all, his home was there. Li Xiaomin and Li Qiuru, brother and sister, applied for leave of absence, returned to Tang Dynasty Group, and joined the Mecha R&D Center of Tang Dynasty Group. The war is about to begin. At this time, the design departments of various military-industrial groups are the busiest. The ideas of various designers are colliding and sparking, and they rack their brains to design mechas that can suppress their opponents. The return of the brother and sister at this time is, first, they can take this opportunity to learn a lot, and second, because the brother and sister have made rapid progress under the influence of Xia Xingchen in the past year, and have been recognized by their second brother. Although Hans Grandit left, the 1524 Mecha Club was not abandoned. Hans gave 10% of the shares of the Mecha Club under his name to Yao Yi, and now Miss Yao Yi, who is still staying in school, is looking after the brothers' industry. In recent months, as many students have to follow the troops to the front line, the mecha modification business of the Mecha Club has increased several times. Xia Xingchen's wallet has become much fatter. The next morning, a royal space shuttle broke through the clouds and headed for the Tangyang ship docked at the Canal Space Station. In the cabin sat Princess Xingchen, Xia Xingchen, Hao Cheng and an old butler who was respected by Qin Jaina as Old Hu. Mr. Hu's name is Hu Rongshan. He is 72 years old this year. He is an A-class mecha master, a martial arts master, and also the bodyguard and housekeeper of Princess Xingchen. When Qin Jaina was in Xia Star, the old housekeeper did not show up often, but whenever Princess Crossing left Xia Star, he would follow Princess Crossing and protect her. 3 years ago, Princess Crossing sneaked out, and it was this old housekeeper who went to Manastar to pick her up. Several people arrived at the Tangyang. At this time, 13 mechas had been loaded, and the mecha hangar of the Tangyang was full. Among them were Hao Cheng's Monkey King mecha, Hu Rongshan's personal mecha, and a Phantom 3 mecha of a major of the Military Intelligence Bureau. In addition, the Royal Fleet sent 2 mecha teams with a total of 10 mechas to participate in the task of protecting the princess. These 10 people are all elite, among which the 2 team leaders are C-class mecha masters, and the other team members are D-class mecha masters whose strength is close to that of C-class mecha masters. Several people boarded the Tangyang, and Captain Van Horn sent someone to arrange cabins for them. Princess Crossing temporarily lived in Zhang Yingying's cabin. Just as everyone settled down, Captain Van Horn notified Xia Xingchen to go to the conference room for a meeting. Xia Xingchen came to the Tangyang's conference room, which was already full of people. The 3 giants of the Tangyang ship were Captain Van Horn, Lieutenant Colonel Heinrich, Chief Engineer Ancelotti, Princess Crossing Kinjana old housekeeper Hu Rongshan, and an intelligence officer with the rank of Major. Seeing that everyone was there, Captain Van Horn signaled to start the meeting. The intelligence officer stood up first and introduced himself. "Hello everyone, let me introduce myself first. I'm Major Li Xiaoyang of the Imperial Military Intelligence Bureau. I will be the liaison and guide for the Star Princess to contact the Galactic Freedom Army this time. Our destination is a Death Star Sea hotel on the edge of the Death Star domain, and the initial contact point is set there. Since the princess's safety is the most important, I suggest that we take the safest route." Captain Van Horn called up the 3-dimensional holographic star map, operated a few times on the virtual keyboard, and said, "There are 13 routes from Shianyuan Star to the Death Star domain. The safest of them is to go directly from Shianyuan Star to Chang'an Star, the capital of the Western Administrative Region, and then take the CD-3598 route to Watch Star. Then go to the Death Star Sea Hotel via Watch Star." Major Li Xiaoyang nodded. "This route is very safe and reasonable. I agree to take this route." Van Horn turned to Hu Rongshan again. "Old man, what do you think of this route? You are professionals in space navigation, and it is up to you to arrange it." Hu Rongshan said, "Okay, let's set off now." The Tangyang embarked on a journey. Vivian piloted the spaceship, sailing at high speed and smoothly. Xia Xingchen still led the crew of the Tangyang to train in martial arts and physical fitness. Princess Crossing followed him closely. Seeing the crew of the Tangyang training, Hao Cheng was also excited and took the initiative to ask to join. His martial arts level was slightly higher than Xia Xingchen, and when he fought with Yugo was very excited. Seeing that these people were training enthusiastically, the old butler Hu Rongshan asked to let the mecha team members of the 2 royal guards join. The members of the royal guards had a very high level of martial arts, but when they faced Yugo, Xia Xingchen and Hao Cheng, they were beaten very badly. So they took out their anger on the other crew members of the Tangyang. The 2 gravity training rooms on the entire battleship were occupied almost all the time. Chapter 227 Emergency. The speed of the Tangyang high-speed cruiser moving at full speed in the main channel is terrifying. In just 4.5 days, they are close to the Chang'an starfield, and they are about to turn and enter the CD-3598 channel heading to the Watch Star. The CD-3598 channel is usually a very busy channel, and there are many explorers and tourists who use this channel to explore or travel in the Death Star field. However, as the war is about to start, a large number of adventurers have turned their attention to the border area. Smuggling there and opening up new channels will bring greater rewards. Moreover, in terms of danger, the Death Star field is much more dangerous than the border. Therefore, the current CD-3598 channel has become deserted. Captain Van Horn is taking Chief Engineer Ancelotti for physical training. This fat man tried every way to be lazy and cunning, and Xia Xingchen and others could not punish him like they did to ordinary soldiers. Helplessly, Captain Van Horn had to take him with him when he trained every day. The training in the past 2 months was effective. At least the big belly of Chief Engineer Ancelotti was trained down. Suddenly, a rapid alarm sounded in the Tangyang battleship. It was a yellow alarm, which was a second-level warning, usually in case of an emergency. All the personnel on the ship stopped training and rushed to their combat positions. Captain Van Horn came to the cockpit and sat in the command seat. "Zhang Yingying, report the situation." Captain, in the direction of Furu Star, 788903 ahead, at a distance of 9080, there is a Pulse 6 small high-speed luxury spacecraft coming towards us at high speed. They are sending a distress signal on the public channel. They are being chased by more than 10 mechas and a medium-sized high-speed stealth warship. The other party wants to kidnap them. Ying, we have a special mission. Should we continue our mission, or intervene in this incident? I want to hear your opinion. Captain Van Horn was a little hesitant in the face of this emergency. After all, there is a princess on the ship, and the princess's safety is the most important. Captain, my suggestion is that we should intervene in this matter. First of all, this waterway is the outer periphery of the Chang'an Star region, and its busiest level is second only to the Xianyuan Star region. There are almost no star pirates here, and now the sudden appearance of a high-speed stealth warship has to make people suspicious. The possibility of star pirates is relatively small, because they simply cannot get such advanced warships. Then the only possibility is the infiltration of the Northern Empire army. If the North has infiltrated here, it is even more necessary for us to reassess the security situation and see whether to carry out the mission. In addition, the Pulse 6 small luxury spacecraft costs as much as 120 billion star coins, and those who can afford such a spacecraft are rare in the entire galaxy. This is a very valuable target. The target that allows the North to take such a big risk to kidnap in the heart of the Empire is of inestimable value. Now that we have encountered it, we have to stop them. Makes sense. I order to move closer to the target and all ships are ready for battle. Distance 8000. Weapon system charging. Detectors fully open. Mechas appear 150 meters behind the Pulse spacecraft. Number 13. One of the thrusters of the Pulse spacecraft was damaged, and the distance between them and the pursuers is shrinking. Go meet them, turn on all detectors, and pay attention to the location of the enemy mothership. Captain Van Horn gave the order. Yes, engine output power 80%, detectors fully turned on, main guns charged, mecha divisions on standby. Distance 5000, enemy mecha distance 6500, enemy mothership found at a distance of 8000. At this time, 8,000 kilometers away, it was one of the 200 Phantom-class high-speed stealth reconnaissance ships newly commissioned by the Northern Empire. The Phantom-class high-speed stealth reconnaissance ship is a special-purpose warship between a small high-speed reconnaissance ship and a medium-sized cruiser. It is 180 meters long, 28 meters wide, and 20 meters high. In order to obtain high speed and stealth performance, the ship body is slender and round, in a cigar shape. The Phantom-class power system is a super large controllable nuclear fusion engine and 4 large controllable nuclear fusion engines. There is a giant thruster and 4 large spacecraft thrusters at the rear of the ship. There are 4 low-energy thrusters in the middle of the hull, which are specially used to adjust the course when the warship is stealthed. This design makes the warship's steering not too sensitive, and the turning radius is increased, which is not suitable for direct confrontation between warships, but it can achieve extremely high speed in a straight line, and has extremely strong maneuverability. Moreover, the hull is much larger than that of ordinary small high-speed warships, which gives it excellent endurance, and can carry out long-distance reconnaissance, lurking, harassment and other tasks. The weapon system of the Phantom class is also relatively simple. There are 4 heavy laser cannons at the bow, 2 heavy laser cannons at the stern, 20 small rapid-fire cannons on the hull, and 4 space torpedo launchers on the hull. In addition, the Phantom class is also equipped with 15 mechas. In addition to high speed, the Phantom class's powerful stealth performance is also its biggest feature. The Phantom class is equipped with 4 Mirage systems on the hull, which has a strong stealth capability, and manufacturing stealth warships is one of the traditional advantages of Northern heavy industries. However, the only drawback is that due to the limited technological strength of the Northern Empire and the blockade of military supplies such as high-power detectors by the Galactic Empire, the maximum detection range of the detection module installed on the Phantom-class ship is only 8,000 kilometers, while the maximum detection range of medium-sized and larger warships that have entered service in the Galactic Empire in recent years is around 10,000 kilometers, and the maximum detection range of several heavy space carriers has even reached 15,000 kilometers. In space warfare, this myopia is very deadly. It is very likely that when you discover the enemy's warship, you have already fallen into the enemy's encirclement. Chapter 228, Firefight. Colonel Rostov used to be the captain of a heavy mecha cruiser of the Northern Empire. His rank is a watershed, and it is difficult to get promoted. Some people have wasted decades in this position without wearing the star. Colonel Rostov is only 45 years old this year, in the prime of his life. Although he is a captain, he is also a B-class mecha division. Now, the war is about to start, and there is an opportunity for him to take that step. The Northern Empire has recently commissioned 200 Phantom-class high-speed stealth reconnaissance ships to conduct reconnaissance and infiltration missions against the Galactic Empire. The Northern Empire Army is recruiting captains from the entire army. Colonel Rostov signed up as soon as possible. Although this mission is very risky, it is also the best opportunity to gain military merit. Moreover, this kind of tactics of infiltrating behind enemy lines and relying mainly on mecha as the main fighting method is exactly what he likes and is good at. Colonel Rostov was the one with the highest rank and the strongest ability among all the applicants, which attracted the attention of the high-level officials of the Northern Empire. The Northern Empire military equipped his N-071 Phantom-class stealth reconnaissance ship with experienced crew members, and the mecha divisions were all D-class mecha divisions. Half of the crew members of other stealth reconnaissance ships were recruits with no combat experience. This time, he received an important task, to intercept a small luxury high-speed spaceship on the waterway between Chang'an Star and Furu Star and capture the people on the spaceship. He didn't know who the people on the ship were. And according to the news from the Northern Fleet military, as long as he can successfully complete this task and successfully send the hostages back to the north, he can get the coveted rank of Brigadier General. Under the guidance of the Intelligence Department, the N-071 spaceship arrived here 2 days ago and turned on the Mirage system to lurk. Immediately afterwards, the Northern intelligence personnel lurking in the Chang'an Star space station sent the route information of the target spaceship. They secretly lurked on the only way from Chang'an Star to Furu Star. Who knew that the Pulse 6 spacecraft actually discovered them when it was about 1,000 kilometers away from the N-071 stealth reconnaissance ship and quickly changed direction to escape. The N-071 stealth reconnaissance ship followed closely behind, and the two spacecraft actually flew one after the other to the route to the Watchstar. Colonel Rostov ordered the main gun to fire, gave a warning to the front ship, and ordered them to stop the ship. Although the distance was far beyond the main gun range, they were really lucky. A laser actually hit the propeller of the small spacecraft. Although the energy of the laser had attenuated most of it at this time, it still caused damage to the propeller. The distance between the two ships was gradually reduced. Seeing that the situation was not good, the Pulse 6 spacecraft in front released 2 mechas to try to stop the pursuers. Colonel Rostov personally led all 15 N-071 mounted mechas to meet the enemy. The 2 mechas that intercepted the pursuers were very advanced, and the 2 bodyguards driving the mechas were both sea-level mecha divisions. They each destroyed a mecha, but they were outnumbered and were spotted by Colonel Rostov and destroyed by laser cannons while dodging the volley of enemy mechas. The people on the Pulse 6 spacecraft fell into deep despair. At this moment, a warship suddenly appeared on the screen in front of them. It was a Tangyang. They immediately sent out a distress signal. Ying, send them a route guidance signal to let them leave the channel. Our spacecraft can't stop the pursuers. Captain Van Horn gave the order. 3,000 meters away from the enemy ship and 2,500 meters away from the enemy mecha. 1,500 meters away from the enemy ship and 1,000 meters away from the enemy mecha. Aim and charge the main gun. 3,000 meters away from the enemy mecha. Optical imaging system activated. The number of enemy mechas is 13, including 1 Terracorps Vulture mecha and 12 unknown beast mechas. Xia Xingchen stayed in the mecha cabin, watching the picture on the monitor, and a familiar shadow flashed through Xia Xingchen's mind. This is the space advanced version of the Flying Wolf mecha. It was designed by a student of our academy. He is from the north. Later, I heard that he joined the Northern Heavy Industry. It seems that this is a Northern infiltration force. Xia Xingchen said. Then we must not show mercy, we must fight hard. Charge the plasma cannon, fire at full power at a distance of 1,000, and let the pulse ship pay attention. to get out of the way. Distance 2000, Tangyang number 0102 Mecha Squadron, Royal Guard number 0102 Mecha Squadron dispatched. This operation is a multi-unit coordinated operation, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Heinrich. Tangyang 00, Heinrich, Death Knight, dispatch. Lieutenant Colonel Heinrich's mecha is an improved version of the Black Lord. The armor, power system, thrusters, and weapon systems have all been replaced. Tangyang 01, Xia Xingchen, Dragon Rider, dispatch. Tangyang's carrier-based mechas filed out. Immediately afterwards, the Royal Guard's mechas also flew out. Royal Guards, Hu Rongshun, Angry King Kong mecha, move out. Princess Guards, Hao Cheng, Monkey King mecha, Somersault Cloud System, move out. All mechas, make sure to clear the channel. After the plasma cannon is fired, the Tangyang carrier base mecha and the Monkey King mecha will move forward to meet the enemy. The only mission of the Royal Guards and Mr. Hu is to protect the spacecraft. Understood. Everyone agreed, and flew in 2 teams on both sides of the Tangyang. Hu Rongshun's Angry King Kong mecha landed on the Tangyang, and the huge mecha laser rifle in his hand was aimed forward. Distance 1000, main gun ready. The Pulse spacecraft flying in front suddenly dived and rolled to the lower left. Colonel Rostov was stunned at first, and then a shrill alarm sounded in the cockpit. High energy reaction ahead. A huge sense of crisis appeared in his heart, and he instinctively pulled the mecha up at full speed, and the engine power instantly reached 100%. Danger, avoid. Before he finished speaking, a thick purple laser streaked across the space. Although a lot of plasma had dissipated at this distance, it still had great lethality to mechas, and the range of action of the plasma had spread to an ionosphere with a diameter of 30 meters. The edge of the ionosphere was only 5 meters away from Colonel Rostov's Terragriffin mecha. Colonel Rostov's underwear was soaked with cold sweat. If he hadn't just subconsciously dodged, he would have turned into space dust. The scorching plasma quickly dissipated in the cold space, and the detectors, that had been disabled by the strong interference of high-energy particles, returned to normal after more than 10 seconds. At this time, the tragic scene on the screen stunned him. Only 4 of the 13 mechas were left in the attack of the plasma cannon, and the remaining 9 became part of space junk. Among the only 4 remaining mechas, 1 was severely damaged and completely lost power. Colonel, please avenge me. Long live the Northern Empire. The injured Sirius mecha activated its self-destruct device. A ball of fire lit up the space red. Chapter 229 Space Interception. The Tangyang opened fire on the N071 carrier base mecha that was chasing the Pulse spacecraft. After the plasma cannon opened fire, 9 mechas were destroyed on the spot, and another 1 lost power and exploded. Colonel Rostov himself was almost killed. Seeing his men suffer heavy losses, Colonel Rostov quickly adjusted his mentality. Ship, stop moving. Everyone returned to the ship. He knew very well that now the enemy was outnumbered, and we were outnumbered, and it was not the time to show off. Yes, sir. The 2 surviving mechas turned and flew towards the N071 spacecraft. Colonel Rostov aimed the 2 twin laser cannons on both hands of the mecha at the Pulse spacecraft 200 kilometers away, and fired 2 high-power salvos. The Pulse spacecraft was unable to dodge. It was hit by 3 or 4 lasers, and the hull was severely damaged. The thrusters were all damaged and lost power. This is still a Pulse 6 spacecraft with thick armor. If it was replaced by an ordinary small spacecraft, it would have exploded long ago. Colonel Rostov was still furious. He continued to shoot. His orders when he came also said that, if he could not capture the target, he would destroy it. This would also cause great losses to the Galactic Empire, but his military achievements would be much less. The Pulse ship was about to reach the critical point of explosion. Colonel Rostov suddenly felt a sense of alarm in his heart. He gave up the attack and quickly rolled sideways. An orange-yellow laser passed through the position where his mecha was just now, followed by 2 more lasers. The 2 winged wolf mechas that were turning to withdraw to the N071 battleship were destroyed in mid-air. Oh, bastard. Only then did he realize that 13 mechas on the screen were coming towards him, and the one in the front was a mecha equipped with a Dragoon system. Colonel Rostov was enraged. Up to now, he had not made any achievements, but the mecha troops were annihilated. Not to mention promotion, it would be good if he did not go to the military court. He aimed the laser cannon at Xia Xingchen and poured out the artillery fire like venting. Xia Xingchen dodged skillfully and began to fight back. After more than 10 seconds, Colonel Rostov knew that he was in trouble. This opponent was too difficult to deal with. Moreover, he was fighting alone now. The other carrier-based mechas were destroyed. Once entangled, he would not be able to escape. Thinking of this, he quickly adjusted the posture of the mecha, shooting while retreating. I'm Tangyang 01. The opponent may be a Class B mecha division. Leave it to me and Hao Cheng. The others go deal with their spaceships. Xia Xingchen realized the opponent's level from these rounds of confrontation and quickly gave orders. I order Xia Xingchen and Hao Cheng to deal with the enemy's mecha division. Tangyang 01, 02 mecha squads and enriched to chase the enemy ship. Tangyang's route will be adjusted immediately to chase the enemy ship, and the 01st Infantry Commando will take the number 1 lifeboat and Tangyang 03 mecha squad to rescue the Pulse 6 spacecraft. Captain Van Horn made a quick decision. He tasted the sweetness from the last battle. Directly attacking the opponent's mothership will definitely make the mecha division in chaos. All departments quickly followed the order to carry out the mission. Colonel Rostov is now very anxious because he can't get rid of the entanglement of the two mechas behind him. The Monkey King mecha and the Dragon Rider Flying General mecha are both equipped with nuclear powered engines and red light thrusters. And his mecha is just an ordinary Horror Corps Vulture mecha with a small amount of modification. This is because the North is too poor, and the Northern Army is even poorer. Although he had been in the army for many years, and was a Class B mecha master, he could not afford to buy a private mecha with his pitiful allowance, so he could only use such high-end standard equipment. The performance of his TerraCorps Vulture mecha was much worse than that of old Sam's TerraCorps Vulture mecha that Xia Xingchen destroyed. Especially since Xia Xingchen used the flowing fire mecha rifle, which was extremely powerful. Even though the TerraCorps Vulture mecha had thick skin and flesh, it would be seriously injured if it was hit. What made him even more anxious was that he watched the other side's two mecha squads and warships go straight to the N071 stealth ship. This was to cut off his retreat. The severe situation made him decide to get rid of the pursuers first. Thinking of this, the TerraCorps Vulture mecha circled in the air, turned around quickly, opened fire at full power, and rushed towards Xia Xingchen and Hao Cheng. Faced with the dense firepower of the TerraCorps Vulture mecha, Xia Xingchen was forced to use the flowing fire mecha rifle's continuous shooting mode to fight back. Hao Cheng's propellers were fully powered, and he rushed forward. His alloy stick danced into an airtight circle of light, and the lasers from the TerraCorps Vulture were blocked one after another. Hao Cheng came close, and the propellers behind him were fully powered. The mecha quickly left the somersault cloud system, aimed at the TerraCorps Vulture mecha, and hit it with a stick. A golden light shot towards Rostov's mecha from more than 10 meters away. This was Hao Cheng's new combat skill, which greatly increased the attack range in close combat. Rostov dodged it smartly, but the laser behind him came again, and he was forced to use a very difficult volley roll to dodge it. At this time, Hao Cheng's long stick stabbed straight at him, and Rostov drew out his light energy double swords and blocked the long stick. But the laser behind him came again to claim his life. The three mechas fought together, and Colonel Rostov was in danger. Xia Xingchen and Hao Cheng were very familiar with each other's attack methods, so there was no sense of unfamiliarity between them. Every attack by the two would force Rostov into a more reluctant position. Xia Xingchen saw that it was almost over, and Colonel Rostov had been pushed to the limit. He decided to give this opponent the last straw. Xia Xingchen seized the opportunity and pressed the start button of the Dragoon system, and 6 floating guns soared into the sky. Colonel Rostov had just escaped from Xia Xingchen's 3 bursts of mecha rifles and Hao Cheng's pursuit stick, and the mecha was already in a state of stiffness. Suddenly, he found that several extra things appeared around the mecha, and his pupils contracted tightly. However, everything was too late. 6 lasers hit the thrusters on the back and legs of his mecha. After a flash of fire, he sadly found that the Horror Corps Vulture had lost power and was hovering in space. At this time, the alloy long stick of the Monkey King mecha had been raised high, and Hao Cheng's blood and ki in his body were running at a high speed. The alloy long stick formed a golden giant blade and smashed down. The horror corpse vulture mecha hurriedly raised the electric sword and crossed it in front of him to block. But this time, Hao Cheng used up all his strength to split the terrifying corpse vulture mecha in half. The violent explosion devoured the ugly soul. At this time, the crew on N071 found that the commander's mecha identification signal had disappeared and hurriedly turned around to escape, but the Tangyang 01, 02 mecha squadrons were already within range, and they were flying and shooting. Due to design defects, the turning radius of the Phantom class warship is large and the turning speed is slow. At this time, the warship has been in front of Heinrich and others. Heinrich raised the huge mecha laser rifle and fired at the tail thruster of the Phantom class. After a series of huge explosions, the Phantom class also lost power and floated in space. However, they did not give up resistance. All the weapon systems of the ship were turned on, including the 4 torpedo launchers at the rear of the ship, and various types of space torpedoes were fired. Report to the Tangyang. The other warships are resisting fiercely. If they are forcibly captured, it will bring great losses. Look at this. Lieutenant Colonel Heinrich reported to the Tangyang. What a joke. This is a life and death war. No prisoners. Destroy them completely. But intercept the torpedoes first. But don't get close. Those lunatics in the north love to self-destruct and die together. Captain Van Horn gave the order. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230 Rescue. Xia Xingchen and Hao Cheng teamed up to defeat Colonel Rostov, a Class B mecha division. His terrifying corpse vulture mecha was split in half by Hao Cheng. Captain Van Horn ordered the pursuit of the N071 spacecraft. The N071 high-speed stealth reconnaissance ship's thruster was damaged during the turn to escape, but they still resisted stubbornly. All the weapons on the ship fired together, including the space torpedo launcher at the stern, releasing several space torpedoes. Torpedo is a weapon with a history of thousands of years. It is low cost and powerful, and once occupied an important position in the history of human warfare. However, later, this weapon was replaced by missiles. Later, when people entered the space age, torpedoes were also brought into space. Its structure is still very simple, consisting of 3 parts: navigation module, warhead, and propulsion device. Space torpedoes first used rocket engines, but this resulted in poor concealment and short range. In particular, the popularity of laser weapons made space torpedoes a decoration. Later, when the Qin family first began to dominate space, they were still a very weak force. In an environment surrounded by powerful enemies, the ancestor of the Qin family appointed a general named Zhou Merio as the commander-in-chief of the Qin family fleet at that time. Commander Zhou Merio had a very good relationship with the Krupp family. Under his organization and instruction, Krupp Industries invested a lot of effort in the research and development of space torpedoes. First, in the warhead, more powerful explosives were used, which enabled it to cause devastating blows to increasingly larger space warships. In the navigation module, the new space torpedo used multiple composite navigation modules such as radar guidance and heat source guidance, and the new navigation module was equipped with an intelligent computer, which could automatically capture targets, avoid interception by turning and changing speed, and could be thrown into space as a mine, floating on the waterway like space junk. Once a ship that met the target characteristics was found, the computer on the space torpedo would immediately start the thruster to launch an attack. In terms of power, the small quantum jet engine became the first choice for space torpedoes, which could emit low energy particles, allowing the torpedo to quietly approach the target at a low speed, and then eject high energy particles at a very close distance, accelerating instantly and giving the target a devastating blow. Commander Zhou Merio defeated many powerful enemies with the surprise and variety of space torpedoes and the opponent's underestimation of the enemy, and made great contributions to the Qin family's later unification of the Milky Way. In order to make up for the lack of its own technological strength, the Northern Empire equipped most of its medium-sized and larger warships with space torpedoes, giving these ships more offensive means. However, this is also a double-edged sword. Once the northern warships are hit, the probability of a secondary explosion is extremely high, which is also related to their equipment of torpedoes. However, the torpedoes released by the N071 warship are now shooting at the Tangyang head-on, and the distance is very far. They basically have no chance of hitting the target, but for the safety of the Tangyang, Lieutenant Colonel Heinrich ordered the mechas to attack the space torpedoes first. At this time, a red light flashed in front of everyone, quickly passed through the dense barrage, and flew towards the N071 warship. It stopped 500 kilometers away from the stealth high-speed reconnaissance ship. This is Xia Xingchen's Dragon Rider flying General Mecha. The Liuho Mecha rifle in the Mecha's hand was adjusted to the plasma cannon mode, with an output power of 96%. An orange-yellow plasma sprayed out, splitting the entire N071 stealth ship in two from top to bottom. The battleship exploded, but what was shocking was that it was a nuclear explosion. It turned out that the engine of this kind of battleship was not equipped with explosion-proof devices. Once destroyed, it would trigger a nuclear explosion. The design concept of the Phantom class is to be used for infiltration operations behind enemy lines, rather than large-scale cluster operations. Otherwise, if such a battleship in the fleet is blown up, the entire fleet will be buried with it. Since it is not a cluster operation, there is no explosion-proof device installed, which can also avoid being captured, and suicide attacks can be used at critical moments. If you pretend to be captured and detonate in the opponent's fleet, you can achieve more brilliant results. Everyone on the Tangyang ship turned green, especially several commanders. Fortunately, they did not let the mechas approach to attack or forcibly board the ship, otherwise it is very likely to cause the destruction of the entire army. They have a deeper understanding of Nicholas's viciousness. The 03rd Mecha team will cover the commandos boarding the ship. Other combat units return. Captain Van Horn gave the order. Just now, the 03rd Mecha team and the commandos have arrived near the Pulse spacecraft. But they did not board the ship immediately, because the battle was not over at this time. The spaceship that lost power was very dangerous. If they boarded the ship rashly, a laser would hit them, and the whole ship would be wiped out. A Mecha used a light energy dagger to carefully pry open the hatch of the Pulse 6 spacecraft. 4 people in spacesuits floated out. One of them was carried and looked injured. Several people were taken into the lifeboat by the commandos. Captain Jadl asked the elder among the rescued people how to deal with the severely damaged spaceship. Tow it away and blow it up. Don't block the channel. The old man was very determined. He said that the luxury spaceship worth hundreds of billions would be thrown away, which made people have all kinds of reverie about his origins. It is very dangerous for a spaceship that has lost power to block the channel. After discussion, the Tangyang carried a large space torpedo from the inside of the ship by 2 mechas. Several infantrymen fixed the torpedo and the spaceship together and then left the spaceship. The Tangyang issued a command to the space torpedo, and the torpedo began to move out of the channel with the Pulse spaceship. More than half an hour later, the torpedo had carried the Pulse ship for nearly 1,500 kilometers and finally left the main channel. The torpedo was set to explode and the channel was cleared. The mechas of the Tangyang returned to the Mecha cabin. The Mecha masters and Mecha cabin maintenance technicians were nervously inspecting and debugging the mechas to prepare for the next battle. The 4 people rescued on the ship were taken to the infirmary for a physical examination. One of the 4 was an old man with white hair and beard, a little girl in a princess dress about 15 or 16 years old, and 2 middle-aged men. The old man only suffered some scratches, and the other 2 men had a broken left arm and a serious concussion, and were in a coma, while the little girl was unharmed. A few hours later, the battleship was ready and set off again on the journey to the Death Star Hotel. At this time, the 3 giants of the Tangyang ship met the rescued old man and the little girl in the conference room, while the 2 injured were still receiving treatment. The 3 looked at the old man and felt familiar, but couldn't remember where they had seen him. The 3 of them briefly exchanged glances, and Captain Van Horn asked, "I'm the captain of this battleship, Colonel Van Horn. This is Lieutenant Colonel Heinrich, the captain of the Mecha squadron of our Tangyang ship, and this is Chief Engineer Ancelotti. May I ask who you are?" I'm Zuo Leheng. This is my granddaughter Zuo King, and the 2 injured are my bodyguards. 2 other bodyguards died in the mecha battle to protect us. When he said this, he sighed, with a bit of loneliness in his eyes. Chapter 231, The Encounter of the Master of Mecha Design. After hearing the old man's self-introduction, the 3 giants of Tangyang were stunned. Zuo Leheng, a godlike name, a legendary figure. All the mecha masters, mecha repairmen, and mechanical technicians in the Galaxy Empire have almost heard of his name. Mr. Zuo is an absolute master in the field of mecha design. He has tens of thousands of mecha-related design patents, including the macro-controlled nuclear fusion mecha engine and the mecha's red light thruster. They couldn't believe that the unintentional help actually saved such a national treasure-level mecha design master. Are you Master Zuo Leheng of Tang Dynasty Group? Captain Van Horn asked again for caution. I'm the old man. I have retired, and am not a master. Don't call me that anymore. Zuo Leheng said modestly. No, you are the master, and you will always be. Your contribution to the science and technology community is indelible. And Saloti jumped up and said excitedly. Zuo Leheng smiled but said nothing. Excuse me, master, why are you here? Captain Van Horn asked. It's a long story. Mr. Zuo Leheng carefully told the 3 people the whole story. It turned out that Mr. Zuo Leheng devoted his whole life to the career of mecha design. He got married and had children in his 50s. Later, in a serious laboratory accident, his son, daughter-in-law, and wife all died in the violent explosion of the accident. Zuo Leheng was heartbroken and even wanted to commit suicide to follow his family. But when he saw that his 3-year-old granddaughter Zuo King was left unattended, he gave up the idea and the 2 depended on each other. Zuo Leheng instilled all his lifelong skills into his granddaughter Zuo King without reservation. Fortunately, his little granddaughter showed amazing talent in mecha design and she also loved this career very much. February 8th of every year is Mr. Zuo Leheng's birthday, which happens to be the holiday of the Imperial Military Command Academy. Zuo King comes back every year to celebrate her grandfather's birthday. February is coming soon. It is Mr. Zuo Leheng's 85th birthday. He also wants to take this opportunity to announce his retirement and find a place to spend his old age. So he and his granddaughter agreed to celebrate his birthday in the beautiful Furuxing this year and choose a place to build a villa with his granddaughter. According to regulations, individuals are not allowed to build buildings there casually. After all, it is the territory of the Terami people. However, the rules are dead and the people are alive. For people like Mr. Zuo Leheng who have made countless special contributions to the Galactic Empire and are not short of money, this is not a problem. So, after Zuo King returned to Chang'an Star on vacation, the grandparents and grandchildren took 4 bodyguards and took a small Pulse 6 small high-speed luxury spacecraft to Furuxing. Due to the shortage of personnel in the Northern Empire, Nicholas searched for high-level talents from all walks of life. Naturally, he would not let go of the master of mecha design like Zuo Leheng. Nicholas began to lay out more than 10 years ago and placed a large number of intelligence personnel around Mr. Zuo to prepare for this day. They learned about Mr. Zuo's travel plan and arranged for the N071 battleship to lie in wait. Then, after the spacecraft departed, they transmitted the route information to the N071 ship. In order to keep it secret, even Colonel Rostov did not know who they were going to catch. The North's action was very well considered. They chose such a time to arrest because they knew that Mr. Zuo Leheng cherished his granddaughter very much. If they arrested her alone, Mr. Zuo, who had a strong personality, would not cooperate and might even detonate the spacecraft. But if Zuo King was there, he could be forced to surrender. After listening to Mr. Zuo Leheng's story, Van Horn secretly rejoiced that he made the right decision. Otherwise, the loss of the Galactic Empire would be too great. However, he was a little confused about what to do next and needed to discuss it with the princess. Old man, you should have a good rest. I will arrange the route and escort you back to Chang'an Star. Captain Van Horn, I have an unwelcome request. Originally, I wanted to retire, but the wind did not stop. Even though the tree wanted to be quiet, the route of my trip this time was leaked. I analyzed that people from the Northern Empire have infiltrated around me. If we go back now, my grandparents and grandchildren may be in danger again. Therefore, my grandparents and grandchildren want to stay on your ship for a while, and when the storm is over, we will leave. What do you think, Captain? This. Van Horn was a little embarrassed. If it were normal times, such a problem would not even need to be considered. If such a person stayed on the battleship for a few days and gave a little guidance to the technical personnel on the ship, the combat capability of the mecha on the Tonggyang would be greatly improved. But now there is a Star Princess Xingchen on the ship, who is going to the Death Star region to perform a special mission. There are many dangers along the way, and he really can't make the decision. Captain Horn, what's the problem? I'm not a difficult person to serve, and I'm not staying here for nothing. I'll be your mecha maintenance technician myself. Old sir, to be honest, my ship has a special mission this time. The next step will be to enter a very dangerous area to carry out the mission. You may be in danger if you stay on the ship. It doesn't matter. I've already saved my life. Now the war is about to start. No one can be immune. Instead of dying in a cage like a canary, it's better to fight hard like an eagle. Zhuo Lehung's attitude was clear and his tone was firm. Well, old sir, this is a serious matter. I can't make the decision, but I can ask someone who can make the decision to apply. Zhuo Lehung nodded. Captain Van Horn pressed the pager. Please ask Miss Xingchen, Mr. Hu and Major Li Xiaoyang to come to the conference room as soon as possible. A few minutes later, the door of the conference room opened, and Xingchen, Hu Yunshan, and Li Xiaoyang walked in one after another. Sister Jaina, why are you here? Zhuo King ran over briskly and took Princess Crossing's hand. Kinga, is that you? She turned around and saw Zhuo Lehung, walked up quickly and saluted. Hello, Mr. Zhuo. Zhuo Lehung hurriedly stood up to return the greeting. Hello, Your Highness. I'm honored to meet you. Princess Crossing hurriedly stopped him. Old sir, no, you are embarrassing me. It turned out that Xingchen had met Zhuo Lehung many times, and she and Zhuo King were also good friends. After the courtesy, everyone sat down. Van Horn introduced the experience of Zhuo Lehung's grandfather and grandson and their plan to stay on the Tonggyang. Xingchen thought for a moment and said, since the master has such an idea, it is better to obey than to be respectful. Huleo, if you encounter danger, please make the safety of Mr. Zhuo and Kinga the primary protection target. This is an order. Yes, princess. Although this order made him very embarrassed, Hu Rungshan also understood that, even if it was any member of the royal family, the elders of the Royal Elders Council, or the military leaders, they would make such a choice. After all, a national treasure level mecha design master is much more important than a princess. And the Imperial Army's Grand Marshal Feng Bismarck said, even if you exchange 5 fleets for Zhuo Lehung, you can't get it. Princess, no, I'm a rotten life. The Empire has given me countless wealth and honors in this life, and I'm satisfied. Once there is danger, the princess's safety is still the first priority. If I encounter an accident, please take good care of Kinga, and I will be satisfied. Zhuo Lehung stood up to stop him. Don't worry, old sir, we will do our best to protect your safety. Xingchen said firmly. Chapter 232, Opportunities for Mecha Masters. There was no conversation that night. The next morning, Zhuo Lehung and Zhuo King, wearing the work clothes of mecha maintenance technicians, came to the mecha cabin accompanied by Captain Van Horn and Chief Engineer Ancelotti. The staff was busy inspecting and maintaining the mecha. Captain Van Horn signaled the 20 mecha maintenance technicians to put down their work and come to assemble. They saw the white-haired old man in front of them from a distance, and their eyes suddenly lit up, unable to hide their excitement. Assemble. Captain Van Horn gave the order, and the mecha maintenance technicians stood in 2 neat rows. This old man, I don't need to introduce you. As soon as he finished speaking, the 20 mecha maintenance technicians saluted in unison. Hello, Mr. Zhuo. Zhuo Lehung smiled and waved his hand, indicating that everyone had finished the ceremony. In the next month, Mr. Zhuo will serve as the technical consultant of our Tonggyang and supervise and guide your work. I know that you guys must be secretly happy, so I hope you can cherish this once in a lifetime opportunity. This month may become a lifetime wealth for you. Van Horn said. The mecha maintenance technicians also nodded frequently and agreed with him. Mr. Zhuo, these guys are handed over to you. In a word, they must obey you absolutely. You can beat and scold them at will, and those who dare to talk back can even be shot. If you don't cherish such a good opportunity, it's a waste of food to live. Van Horn said, and everyone laughed. Okay, then let's hurry up. Today, I will go with you to get familiar with and understand the mechas on the ship again. Who among you is the person in charge? Zuo Lehung asked. Report. I'm the squad leader of the mecha maintenance team, Roy, an intermediate mecha maintenance technician. A middle-aged man with brown hair and the rank of sergeant stood up. Okay, Sergeant Roy, you will take the lead and introduce each mecha on the ship, including their parameters, advantages, weaknesses, maintenance difficulties and precautions. After the introduction, I will supplement what you said, and then you can ask any questions. Zuo Lehung said. Sergeant Roy looked embarrassed. Reporting to Mr. Zuo, I'm not the mecha technician with the highest level of mecha maintenance on this ship, and there are several mechas with too high technical content. I don't quite understand them. Oh, what's going on? Zuo Lehung turned to ask Captain Van Horn. Oh, look at my brain, how could I forget him? Then, he turned on the pager. Please ask Lieutenant Colonel Xia Xingchen to come to the mecha warehouse as soon as possible. Lieutenant Colonel Heinrich will temporarily take over the physical training for the next few days. Xia Xingchen didn't know what happened. He came to the mecha warehouse in confusion and saw a group of people gathered there from a distance. Zuo King was the first to jump over and looked at him. Why are you here again? Xia Xingchen was also very surprised why Zuo King came to the warship. The two of them met at Chiaoyi's coming of age ceremony a few months ago. Xingchen, let me introduce you to Mr. Zuo Lehung, the master of the mecha design industry in the Galactic Empire. Mr. Zuo, this is Xia Xingchen, a senior mecha maintenance technician who is less than 20 years old and a C-class mecha technician. Captain Van Horn introduced the two. Xia Xingchen walked over and gave Mr. Zuo Lehung a great courtesy from a younger generation to an elder. Get up quickly, no need to be so polite. This child. Mr. Zuo Lehung hurriedly helped him up. No, Mr. Zuo, this is what I should do. My godfather and enlightenment teacher is called Free. Oh, that's how it is. Good boy. Only that guy can teach such an excellent student like you. Zuo Lehung said with emotion. Free is the one he likes most among his 3 students. Unfortunately, his family suffered a disaster. In order to avenge his family, Free left the front line of mecha research. Otherwise his current achievements might not be lower than his own. Then, Xia Xingchen, you will introduce the mechas on our Tangyang. Yes, Mr. Zuo. Mr. Zuo Lehung took the initiative to ask to serve as the mecha technical consultant on the Tangyang. Under the leadership of Xia Xingchen, these mecha maintenance technicians began to gradually re-recognize and familiarize themselves with the various types of mechas on the Tangyang. Xia Xingchen's amazing memory and his understanding of mechas in practice over the years deeply impressed these mecha technicians. Xia Xingchen answered all the questions raised by some mecha maintenance technicians without Mr. Zuo's intervention. Zuo Lehung was very shocked. It was rare for a young man under 20 years old to have such ability. Even his granddaughter, who was amazingly talented and had a very good growth environment, could only admit defeat. After introducing all the general purpose mechas, everyone came to the mecha hangar, where several private mechas were parked. The first thing that came into view was Yugo's Terami warrior mecha. After Xia Xingchen introduced the parameters and weapons and equipment of this mecha, a mecha maintenance technician raised his hand and said, "Excuse me, Major Xia Xingchen, this mecha is for Yugo. As far as I know, the mental power level of the Terami people can only reach level 10, but in fact, Yugo's mecha combat level has reached the level of a C-level mecha master. How is this done?" Xia Xingchen pressed a few buttons on the mecha maintenance console, and the cockpit of the Terami warrior mecha slowly opened. Seeing the device inside, everyone was stunned. The Terami warrior mecha uses a mechanical simulation operation method. This operation method requires a high level of physical fitness for the mecha master. However, this is not a problem for the Terami people. On the contrary, this operation method can best bring out the Terami people's martial arts. It looks like he is driving a mecha, but in fact, this mecha control method is no different from their physical combat. Xia Xingchen explained. that these mecha masters had only heard of this technology when they were studying theoretical courses. Since it is an outdated technology, the junior and intermediate mecha masters have basically not been exposed to the technology of mechanical simulation operation of mecha. Xia Xingchen explained to them in detail the principles, technical difficulties, maintenance skills, etc. of this technology. After he finished speaking, he said to Zuo Leheng, "Old man, do you have anything else to add?" Everyone looked at Zuo Leheng. Mr. Zuo asked, "This mecha is the work of your teacher Free, right?" "Yes, it is the work of teacher Free." Zuo Leheng nodded and continued, "This mecha was designed by one of my favorite students. His name is Free, and he is also Xia Xingchen's teacher. Free's greatest advantage is that he firmly believes that there is no outdated technology, only technology that is not used in the right place. In his mecha design concept, he rarely pursues the highest, most sophisticated and cutting-edge technology, but is very good at applying existing and very mature technology to mecha design. I personally think that this is the way a mecha repairman and designer should go. It's not that the mecha designers who only focus on high-tech and sophisticated technology cannot succeed, but most of them eventually fall into a dead end and cannot extricate themselves. They always complain that the development of technology limits their thinking. In fact, it is they themselves who limit their thinking. The mecha masters present were all silent. Many of them were also very keen on searching for the most advanced technical information to learn, but they always sneered at some outdated technologies, which was exactly the kind of people that Zuo Leo had just mentioned. Now, the Terami warrior mecha was fully displayed in front of them. This mecha did not use any technology that was beyond the times, but this did not affect its powerful combat effectiveness at all. When I was young, I worked as a mecha repairman in the frontline troops on the border for 5 years. There I realized that it is impossible to have such good conditions and sufficient spare parts supply on the battlefield. As long as you can make the mecha move and continue to fight, no matter what technical method you use, it is reasonable. Zuo Leheng continued to add. There was still silence at the scene. The mecha divisions were all lost in thought. After a long time, someone took the lead in applauding. Mr. Zuo waved his hand and motioned them to continue. The next mecha to be introduced is Lieutenant Colonel Heinrich's Death Jazz Mecha. This is a modified version of the Black Jazz Mecha. Death Jazz Mecha, height 5.2 meters, parameters, strength 24, agility 24, armor 30, speed 26. The mecha's thrusters are a mix of blue light thrusters and white light thrusters. This is also a helpless thing. The military's mecha divisions do not have so much oil and water to make, and they are short of money. In addition to the 7th Fleet, other fleets are facing a lack of combat exploits. The weapon systems of the Death Jazz Mecha include a light energy spear and 2 light energy daggers. There are 8 miniature anti-mecha missiles on the back of the mecha. In addition, Colonel Heinrich habitually brings a mecha laser sniper rifle when he attacks. After introducing the parameters of the Death Jazz Mecha, Xia Crossing continued. Lieutenant Colonel Heinrich's Death Jazz Mecha is modified from the Black Jazz Mecha. Its specific changes are, the armor has been replaced with a stronger alloy armor, the arrangement of the thrusters has been changed, and some of the white light engines have been replaced. The joints and mecha skeleton have been replaced with a stronger alloy skeleton, and 8 macro anti-mecha missiles have been installed on the back of the mecha. The Black Duke is a very good general-purpose military mecha. Although it has been in service for 25 years, the biggest feature of this mecha designed and produced by Dino military industry group is that it is balanced and has no shortcomings. The external armor of the mecha is thick, but the design is reasonable. Multi-layer composite armor is used in multiple positions, which greatly improves the ability to resist attacks. It is not weak in strength, but it does not affect flexibility at all. The more critical point is that it has a reliable structure, is tough and durable, and is very convenient and quick to repair and maintain. The cost is much lower than that of the Terra Griffin, so it is equipped in large quantities by the army. Before humans entered the space age, there was an assault rifle called AK-47. This rifle was cleverly designed and powerful. The most important thing is that it was cheap and durable. This gun was produced for more than 100 years and was hailed as the most deadly thermal weapon before the space age. Now the Black Duke is also on the verge of becoming the AK-47 of the mecha world. Dino military industry has launched a number of mechas since then, but the performance is not satisfactory, so they simply cut off the production and research and development of other models of mechas, and began to specialize in the production of the Black Duke mecha. The Black Duke's melee performance is excellent, but there are also many mecha pilots who use it as a sniping platform. For example, the Black Fox, who had a conflict with Xia Xingchen back then, he used a modified Black Duke mecha. Chapter 233 Introduction to Mecha. After the introduction of the two mechas, it was already noon, and everyone left to eat. After eating, they came to the mecha hangar again. Xia Xingchen said, the remaining 3 mechas are all equipped with nuclear-powered mechas with nuclear-powered engines. Logically speaking, most of you are junior mecha repairmen and intermediate mecha repairmen. According to the law of technical reserves, you should not be exposed to this aspect now with your current abilities. But now is a war period, and we have to act swiftly. Today is an opportunity, you must seize it. Although Xia Xingchen is younger than these people, the technical industry has always been a teacher to those who have achieved success. Even if they are at the same level, if someone is younger than you, and has reached the same level as you, it means that he is more capable than you. Besides, Xia Xingchen's military rank is much higher than Th's, so it is not inconsistent to say this. These 3 mechas are equipped with 3 different macro-controlled nuclear fusion engines. Among them, Mr. Who's Angry King Kong mecha is equipped with the Longsun 3 nuclear engine, and its data is. Hao Cheng's Monkey King mecha is equipped with the Longsun V nuclear engine, and its parameters are. My Dragon Rider mecha is equipped with the KLB-3 engine, and its specific parameters are. Xia Xingchen narrated dozens of parameters of the 3 engines verbatim without any information or prompts, which once again caused amazement among the mecha masters. To be honest, I don't have much contact with nuclear engines, and I only know this very limited content. But it doesn't matter, we have the absolute authority of macro-controlled nuclear fusion engines here. Next, we would like to invite Mr. Zuo to explain to us the differences between these macro-controlled nuclear fusion engines. Mr. Zuo connected his personal terminal to the large screen in the mecha hangar. He operated it for a few times, and called out a cursor. This is a teaching software about the evolution and design ideas of mecha nuclear engines. Mr. Zuo Leheng explained it to them personally. This lecture lasted 4 or 5 hours. Mr. Zuo Leheng spoke seriously, and the mecha repairmen were fascinated by it. They, the mecha repairmen, are very lucky that Mr. Zuo personally teaches. Only the senior mecha repairmen within the Tang Dynasty group can enjoy such treatment. All the mecha repairmen present today benefited greatly from this class. Mr. Zuo took a sip of water, rested for a while, and then said, I have just told you the principle of the macro-controlled nuclear fusion engine. So now, I will talk about the differences between these 3 engines. Both Longsun 3 and Longsun 5 were developed under my leadership. Longsun 3 was produced more than 30 years ago. However, this engine is a mature product that was finally launched after hundreds of thousands of modifications and tests on the basis of Longsun 2. According to data from the market department of Tang Dynasty Group, the market share of Longsun series engines is 95%, and 80% of them are Longsun 3 nuclear mecha engines. Its biggest advantages are high output power and strong explosive power. However, in contrast, this engine wastes nuclear power seriously and consumes a lot of nuclear fuel. Moreover, long-term high power output will cause the engine to overheat and affect the output power. Longsun 5 is the most mature macro-controlled nuclear fusion mecha engine product of Tang Dynasty Group. Compared with Longsun 3, it is slightly smaller in size and applicable to a wider range of models. Although its output power is smaller, it is completely sufficient. Moreover, the energy output circuit design of Longsun 5 is more reasonable, and the energy output control is more precise. The energy consumption is less than 1/3 of that of Longsun 3 engine, which also solves the problem of engine heating due to long-term high power non-output. As for the KLB-3 nuclear engine used by Xia Xingchen's Dragon Rider Flying General Mech, I have to admit that this macro-controlled nuclear fusion engine, which integrates the thousands of years of technology accumulated by Krupp industry, is slightly larger in size. but its indicators and other aspects such as output power, number of energy circuits and energy output control are far ahead of the Lanxin 5 nuclear energy engine. But the biggest problem it faces is that the cost of this engine is more than 3 times that of Lanxin 5. Just this point alone will make people give up it and use Tang Dynasty products. Everyone suddenly realized it after hearing this. Xia Xingchen looked at the time and interrupted everyone. Let's stop here today, let Mr. Zuo have a good rest, and everyone will go back to summarize today's gains in the evening. Today's class ended with the warm applause of the mecha maintenance technicians. There was no conversation all night. None of the mecha maintenance technicians slept well that night. They were sorting out what they learned during the day, looking up information, and preparing questions to ask the next day. Xia Xingchen also felt that he benefited a lot. Not only did he listen to Mr. Zuo Leheng's lectures, but in fact, most of the content of the day was mainly taught by Xia Xingchen. Although he didn't like to be in the limelight, Mr. Zuo told him that in the process of lecturing others, the lecturer must sort out what he has learned from the beginning, and then consider how to explain it to others in easy to understand language, and finally find cases, expand knowledge points, and prepare to deal with various problems. This is also a systematic review process of knowledge. Xia Xingchen deeply felt this in today's lecture. That night, he only meditated for 2 hours, and the rest of the time was used for summarizing and preparing lessons. The next day, the mecha maintenance technicians continued their learning process. First, they studied Hao Cheng's Monkey King mecha. This is an excellent fighting mecha. After introducing the data of the Monkey King mecha, Xia Xingchen focused on telling the mecha technicians about the principles, evolution process, design ideas and maintenance precautions of the fighting mecha. It's just that the number of fighting mechas is really small, and most of them are high-end private mechas. Almost no one of these mecha technicians has ever come into contact with fighting mechas. Naturally, no one asked questions. However, Xia Xingchen had some questions that he didn't understand and needed to ask Mr. Zuo Leheng. Mr. Zuo, I have never understood the alloy stick in the weapon system of this Monkey King mecha. I have scanned it with a perspective device, and it is absolutely solid. There is no mechanical device inside, but it can burst out such a huge force. I want to know why. Xia Xingchen raised the question, and played some clips of Hao Cheng's battle on the big screen. Mr. Zuo Leheng pondered for a while, and then personally came to the Monkey King mecha, and scanned and measured the alloy stick with multiple instruments such as an isotope analyzer. Mr. Zuo put down the instrument in his hand and said, if I'm not mistaken, this alloy stick is a quasi S-class mecha weapon. Yes, you are right, Mr. Zuo, my master, Night Bell, said when he handed it to me, that this stick is a quasi S-class weapon. Hao Cheng and several mecha repairmen were listening on the side. Although they didn't understand most of what Xia Xingchen and Mr. Zuo said, at least they could gain a lot of knowledge by listening. Chapter 234, Introduction to Mecha. Since we are talking about this, let's discuss a problem. This problem is also a problem that is worthy of in-depth research. That is the application of new materials and special materials. Some mecha masters are keen on the research of mechanical technology and pursue the ultimate mechanical design. They believe that mechanical design is the origin of science and technology. But they are wrong, completely wrong. On the road of scientific and technological development, materials science occupies a very important position. Any major breakthrough in the scientific community is inseparable from the leap of materials science. For example, when humans manufacture spacecraft, the outer shell of the spacecraft must be strong enough, and our mecha, the pure iron outer shell alone can crush the mecha with the weight of the outer shell of the mecha. In addition, there are cables inside the mecha, which must be reliable, durable, and have a high transmission rate, which requires a lot of new materials to support. There are also many genius designs, but because a key material was not found, this technology was directly aborted. In addition, the nerve conduction device and mental force sensing device of our mecha have made rapid progress only after the material problem was solved. Therefore, when it comes to the development of mecha technology, the topic of materials science cannot be avoided. This alloy stick may not seem to have any scientific content, but it is made of a variety of special materials, which makes it extremely powerful. First of all, the main body of this stick, That is, most of the weight of the stick is made of namalloy. Namalloy is a special alloy formula. A variety of rare minerals are specially matched and fused together under special processes such as high temperature and high pressure to form an extremely hard namalloy. The strength and hardness of namalloy are second to none among artificial synthetic materials. In addition to being hard, it also has many characteristics such as high temperature resistance, high pressure resistance, corrosion resistance, and low temperature resistance. However, this also brings many changes to its application. Because namalloy is too stable and hard, it is very laborious to use it to make various parts. It is difficult to use it to make those complex parts. Most of them are used to make mecha shells, shields, etc. Here, it is more suitable to use it to make a long stick. At least hardness is a minimum requirement for melee weapons. The second precious mineral is Indian quartz sand. You should be familiar with this mineral. It was discovered on the Indian Star in the Eastern Administrative Region, but the largest production area is on several remote planets in the Rho star field. The characteristic of Indian quartz sand is that it can resonate with human mental power. After it comes into contact with human mental power, it will produce a very special magnetic field. According to the strength of human mental power and the frequency of mental power fluctuations, this magnetic field will also change accordingly. So people use this characteristic to invent mental power sensing devices to control the operation of mechas. Now Indian quartz sand is a special strategic material in the Milky Way, and it is strictly forbidden for individuals to buy and sell it. Now only a small amount of Indian quartz sand has been found on a remote asteroid in the Northern Empire, but this is far from enough for the North. Don't underestimate this long stick. It uses the amount of Indian quartz sand equivalent to more than a dozen mental mechas. I think you must ask, there is no mechanical device on it. What is the use of this Indian quartz sand? This has to mention the third material on this long stick, red bloodstone. Red bloodstone is not an ore, but a reddish brown crystal formed after the blood of a space creature condenses. I don't know much about its specific mechanism of action, but I have read a document that it can resonate with the blood circulation in the body of the Mecha Master, thereby playing a role in energy amplification. The faster the blood circulation, the greater the effect of energy amplification. However, the Indian quartz ore and red bloodstone are both used for a material. This is a polar magnetic ore. The polar magnetic ore can generate a strong magnetic field. The alloy long stick containing the polar magnetic ore interacts with the magnetic field generator in the mecha body, releasing the energy in the mecha to the outside of the mecha, and controlling this energy through the Indian quartz ore, while the energy is amplified through the red bloodstone. You can see the light ring swung by Hao Cheng's mecha in combat, and the giant light blade formed by the long stick waving, which are all the result of the energy released from the mecha. This is exactly where the design of this weapon is clever. It is not that it has no mechanical device, but that this device is hidden inside the mecha, and the alloy long stick is just a device to trigger it, and a control device. Such a design is really ingenious. In addition, I also detected some special minerals in this long stick, but the content is very small. I guess it should be some kind of catalyst and stabilizer. Zuo Lehen finished speaking, and the crowd applauded again. Thank you, Mr. Zuo, for your guidance. Xia Xingchen bowed deeply. Xingchen, you are too modest. I'm just a few years older than you. Because of my work, I have seen more things. You are still young. As long as you are willing to work hard, you may not be able to achieve more than me in the future. Zuo Leheng said modestly. In fact, seeing these young mecha masters, he thought of himself when he was young. At that time, Zuo Leheng came from a family of mecha research. He was talented, but he was arrogant and full of arrogance. For a while, he fell into a bottleneck. Zuo's father looked at his son's irritable state and was very worried, so he sent him to the army to the border areas where wars continued. In those places, Zuo Leheng received a spiritual baptism. He reflected deeply and finally understood what he lacked and why he was doing mecha research. After returning from the army, Zuo Leheng's achievements in mecha maintenance have been advancing by leaps and bounds. When he was in his 30s, he completed the research and development of macro-controlled nuclear fusion engines, and when he was 40, he completed the research and development of red light thrusters. Later, he devoted himself to the research and development of mechas. Now that he is old, he is unable to carry out high-intensity research work, so he finally made a difficult decision: retirement. As a result, the weather is unpredictable. On the way to Furuxing, the two of them were attacked. For safety reasons and anger at Nicholas, Zuo Lehung decided to stay on the Tangyang first, but through the contact with these mecha masters in the past 1 or 2 days, Zuo Lehung was deeply infected by their desire for knowledge, and he remembered himself when he was young. So after deep thought, he decided to give up the plan of retirement for the time being, but to pass on his lifelong learning to future generations in the future, so that these precious knowledge can be passed on. Moreover, if the Galactic Empire produces a large number of high-level mecha maintenance masters under his influence, the Galactic Empire will have a greater chance of winning in the civil war that will break out soon. Chapter 235 Introduction to Mecha. The training of mecha maintenance technicians on the Tangyang is still going on. After introducing Hao Cheng's Monkey King mecha, and getting to know the alloy long stick as a quasi S-class weapon, everyone came to the mecha maintenance operation table where Hurangshan's Angry King Kong mecha was located. Butler Hurangshan is an A-class mecha master. He has served in the Royal Guard all his life, and has no shortage of money. So his Angry King Kong mecha was specially designed by a famous mecha designer, and the materials and accessories are all the best. When Mr. Zuo Lehung saw it, the old man laughed. This mecha was made by another student of mine, Li Yunmiro, the current director of the Mecha R&D Center of Tang Dynasty Group, more than 10 years ago. I also helped him make some modifications back then. Seeing this mecha, Mr. Zuo recalled the days when he was in the Mecha R&D Center of Tang Dynasty Group. This design Li Yunmiro is the uncle of Li Xiaomin and his sister, and also their mecha enlightenment teacher. Back then, Hurangshan asked him to design the mecha himself, and he also used a lot of favors. The Angry King Kong mecha is 5.6 meters high. The whole body of the mecha is reddish brown, with parameters: strength 36, agility 28, armor 40, speed 36. This is a super high protection, heavy firepower output mecha. Its power unit is a Dragon Core 3 macro-controlled nuclear fusion engine. The mecha is equipped with all red light thrusters, so although it has a large weight and very thick armor, its flight speed is not inferior to those mechas that are known for their speed. The mecha's weapon system includes 2 twin laser cannons installed on the mecha's arms. There are 8 laser rapid fire cannons on the front, back, left and right of the mecha. There is a light energy sickle on the back of the mecha, and 2 light energy swords on the waist of the mecha. The eyes of the mecha are 2 macro laser rapid fire cannons, which can launch an unexpected attack on the opponent in close combat, and destroy the detection device of the opponent's mecha. With it, this mecha is truly a Angry King Kong. The shoulder and back of the mecha is a huge golden device, which looks like a huge Fallon from the front. This is an A-level mecha weapon, a high-energy microwave radiation cannon. The principle of this weapon is to use a pair of huge microwave generators to release a large amount of microwaves in a short period of time. When this microwave shines on the mecha or spacecraft, it will cause the water in the opponent's mecha master to boil and cause the body to explode and die. Moreover, when the microwave shines on the mecha, it will burn a large number of electrical components in the mecha and cause the battery of the mecha to overload and explode. The most terrifying thing is that it is a large-scale killing weapon that can fully cover the target within the 45-degree angle in front of the mecha. The killing distance of a full power launch can reach 50 kilometers. However, this powerful weapon is not invincible. It has many limitations. First, the nuclear-powered mecha equipped with a light energy shield system can support a few seconds within the attack range of the microwave. These few seconds are enough for their mecha to escape the radiation range or counterattack. Second, the high-energy microwave radiation cannon consumes a lot of energy. The total energy generated by a new mecha with nuclear fusion fuel rods can only support it to launch at full power 4 times. Third, every time the full power launch is launched, there must be at least 10 minutes of cooling time. In the mecha battle, 10 minutes is enough time for many things to happen. Fourth, every time the high-energy microwave radiation cannon is launched at full power, this weapon can instantly occupy nearly 90% of the power of the nuclear power engine. At this time, the thrusters and light energy shields of the mecha are in a state of insufficient energy, and it is also easy to be attacked. Despite the many restrictions, this is still a very terrible weapon. If used properly, it can destroy hundreds of mechas at a time, and its power is comparable to that of a small nuclear bomb. However, the main mission of designing this angry King Kong mecha was not to let it charge into battle, but to protect the royal family. Therefore, this mecha has many unique designs in terms of protection. The first is the two-story double cockpit. The upper layer is the normal mecha division cockpit, and the lower layer is a passenger cabin with various protection and life support systems. Once the mecha is destroyed, the cabin can also be ejected to allow the members inside to escape. In addition, there are 4 mental shields on the arms, cockpit, and front of the high-energy microwave radiation cannon. The armor of the mecha is the latest special alloy with super strong protection, and the design and materials of the internal support structure are consistent with those of the fighting mecha. The body of the mecha is equipped with 6 light energy shield systems, which can help the mecha resist the attack of 6 ordinary lasers at the same time. If the mecha master defends with all his strength, it is difficult for 2 mecha teams to cause damage to the angry King Kong mecha by shooting at the same time. Of course, the cost of such a mecha is not less than 30 billion star coins, and only the royal family can afford such a large sum of money. Although Xia Xingchen had discovered all the secrets of this mecha with his inside skills earlier, he only introduced the mecha very simply and did not tell the specific parameters. Because this is a need for the royal guard to keep secrets. You all tell me, what is the most critical technical point in the design of this mecha? Mr. Zuo Leheng suddenly asked. It's the strength of the mecha. If the mecha is not strong enough, it can't bear so many equipments. I think it's the control auxiliary system. It's difficult for ordinary people to take care of so many devices. Are you stupid? Mr. Who is a level mecha master. This control is no problem for him. Is it the compatibility of the weapons? A group of mecha masters had different opinions. Xia Xingchen, you tell me. Mr. Zuo Leheng asked Xia Xingchen to speak. Xia Xingchen organized his words and said, I think the most critical technical point is the nuclear engine of the mecha. The various weapon systems of this mecha, especially the high-energy microwave radiation cannon, including a large number of light shields and mental shields, are all energy-consuming components. Now I have seen that only the engines of Langxin 1, Langxin 3, and KLB3 nuclear-powered mecha engines can drive it. When it was designed, only Langxin 3 should meet the requirements. The performance of this mecha still has a lot of room for improvement, such as replacing a more powerful nuclear engine, or removing the co-pilot cabin, and installing a high-energy storage battery, which will solve the problem of insufficient energy for the thruster and light shield when the high-energy microwave radiation cannon is fired. Everyone was enlightened after listening to Xia Xingchen's statement. Very good. You hit the point. I personally think that materials and engines are the biggest obstacles to the performance of mechas. Other technical problems can find alternative solutions, but these 2 points cannot be circumvented. Although you are not exposed to the design of mechas now, please remember this sentence, which is the experience summarized from decades of mecha design in my life. Mr. Zuo made a summary speech. Everyone applauded again. Chapter 236, Introduction to Mecha. The mecha maintenance training on the Tangyang continued, and the last mecha that appeared in front of everyone was the Dragon Rider. Xia Xingchen explained it in more detail, because he was the designer himself, and gave everyone a detailed explanation of each parameter of the mecha, design ideas, etc. Everyone looked at him with more admiration. At first, some people were still unconvinced by Xia Xingchen, thinking that he got this senior mecha maintenance technician through nepotism and good luck. But now, no one said so anymore, and only deep admiration remained. Although Xia Xingchen's level in mecha maintenance and design is still very far from Zuo Leheng's level, at least he has touched that threshold. And they haven't even entered the building yet. Xia Xingchen, the Dragon Rider system is generally called a flashy thing. Why do you consider designing such a mecha? And you didn't seem to mention the auxiliary operating system on this mecha just now. Zuo King, who had been standing by and listening, wearing a big black-rimmed glasses, suddenly asked. As soon as she put on the glasses, her whole temperament changed. She was originally a lively and playful girl, but now she is a cool and intellectual beauty. Of course, she wears glasses not because of myopia. People with a mental strength level of 7 basically no longer have myopia due to the strengthening of the body by the pituitary gland. In addition to being a decoration, glasses can also be used for recording, displaying information, night vision, telescopes, and microscopes. However, Miss Zuoking is still upset about Xia Xingchen's use of the Dragon Rider Warrior Mecha to win the Xianyu and Star Mecha design competition last year. So, taking this opportunity, Miss Zuo started to make trouble. She wanted to embarrass Xia Xingchen. Xia Xingchen looked at her with a smile. Although she didn't know why she reacted so strongly, she could see her dissatisfaction from her expression. The idea of designing the Dragoon General Mech came from the fact that no mech equipped with the Dragoon system has been produced for more than 60 years. 60 years ago, due to the limitation of the technological level, the research and development of the Dragoon Mech hit a bottleneck, so it was eliminated by history. However, after 60 years of development, technology has made great progress. The application of various new materials and new technologies has made the mech lighter and smaller. The great progress of battery technology has given the Dragoon Mecha longer endurance, especially after I came into contact with the macro-controlled nuclear fusion engine. I found that the nuclear engine and the Dragoon system are simply a perfect match. Therefore, combining all the above reasons, plus the guidance of my mentor Dr. Emerson at the military academy, I designed the Dragoon General Mech. As for the second question, asked by Miss Zuo, about the control of the Dragoon system, I'm a SEAL level mech division, and I have the strength and ability to control multiple floating guns, so I did not install the operation auxiliary device. But this design is on the design drawings I sold to the Tang Dynasty group. I wonder if my answer can satisfy you. HMPH, you're just making up a story. In my opinion, your mecha design has a lot of flaws, such as Zuoking was not convinced at all. For example, this flywheel, which greatly affects the maneuverability of the mecha, and can only carry 6 floating guns. This is a completely wasteful design, a complete failure. Zuoking said. Miss Zuo has a keen eye. However, when I designed the Dragon Rider Warlord Mech, there was no nuclear power engine, so I could only use battery packs. There are also 2 sets of batteries in this flywheel disc to charge the floater. At that time, because I had no money, the thrusters were a mix of blue light thrusters and white light thrusters. Later, I met William Krupp by chance, and he gave me an engine and several accessories. Only then did I have the opportunity to upgrade and transform the Dragon Rider Warlord Mech, so I got the current Dragon Rider Flying General Mech. The flywheel disc on the Dragon Rider system is really useless, but my floater is based on the design of the flywheel disc. If I want to completely transform it, I have to redesign all the floaters. I have already designed it, and the drawings are in my personal terminal. But as Mr. Zuo said, due to the limited conditions on the battlefield, I don't have so many materials and accessories, and I don't have the ability to manufacture them. Moreover, as far as I know, my mecha is the first Dragon Rider mech equipped with a nuclear power engine in the entire galaxy, while other Dragon Rider Warlord mechas do not have nuclear power engines, so they can only keep the flywheel disc. As for the number of floaters, with my current ability, I can only operate 6 at the same time, so 6 floaters are enough. Adding more but not being able to control them is meaningless for a mecha master of my level. Xia Xingchen's explanation made sense, and Zuoking pouted unhappily. Xia Xingchen is right. Do you know what your problem is now? That is, your conditions are too superior. You have everything you want, you can use the best equipment and accessories, and even precious materials are available to you in large quantities. This has cultivated a kind of inertia in you, and led you into a misunderstanding. Now that we are here, it is a training for you. In this battlefield, supplies are scarce, and how to use limited resources to maximize the power of mechas is something you must learn. At this point, Xia Xingchen, including all the mecha maintenance technicians on the ship, are your teachers, and you must learn with an open mind. Old Mr. Zuo stepped forward in time to rescue his granddaughter. I see, Grandpa. Xingchen, I really didn't expect that Emerson was also your teacher. 2 of my 3 most proud disciples have taught you. This is really fate. But Emerson is the kind of person who likes to study and use the latest and most advanced technology. His technical route is exactly the opposite of free. This is very good for you, Xingchen. You should be good at learning from their strengths. I see, Mr. Zuo. Xia Xingchen replied respectfully. Through the 2 consecutive days of mecha introduction classes by Xia Xingchen and Mr. Zuo Leheng, the mecha masters on the Tangyang felt that they benefited a lot. The next morning, the ship's radio suddenly broadcast a notice that the Tangyang would dock at the Datsurus space station ahead for about a day. The Tangyang spacecraft will rest and replenish supplies at the space station. Except for the 10 people left on the ship for strategic duty and material replenishment, the others went off the ship for a day off and free activities, and there would be a dinner party for all in the evening. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237, The Galactic Empire's Response. The crew members got off the spacecraft happily and went their separate ways at the dock of the space station. Most people went to make large purchases, and some went to the bar of the military home to drink and relax. Captain Van Horn and Major Li Xiaoyang took this time to pass on the experience of Mr. Zuo Leheng and the thermal information and optical images of the Phantom class high-speed stealth reconnaissance ship and Sirius mecha discovered in this battle to General von Klausch and the Imperial Military Intelligence Bureau. Mr. Zuo Leheng also evaluated the performance of this warship and mecha through video with his rich experience, which was basically close to the truth. The reason for reporting now is that the universe is too vast and most places cannot be connected to Skynet. The space station is within the coverage of Skynet, and it can contact the military through Skynet here. In the report, they especially mentioned the kidnapping and killing of high-end technicians such as Zuo Leheng by the Northern Infiltration Forces and the important information that the other side's warships did not install engine explosion-proof devices. Soon, General von Klausch and Minister of the Interior De Yunfei learned of this important information. General von Klausch quickly contacted Imperial Field Marshal von Bismarck. Father, the latest intelligence has come from the front. As we analyzed at the military meeting, the Northern Empire has sent a large number of infiltration personnel. They have been discovered by our side and exchanged fire 2 days ago. Through this encounter, the Northern Army has many new movements that deserve our vigilance. Oh, tell me in detail. Yes, Father. 2 days ago, the Tangyang high-speed mecha cruiser under the 6th Fleet of the 3rd Fleet of the Galaxy was on its way to the Death Star region to perform a special mission. It discovered that a northern warship was chasing a small private spaceship, so the Tangyang intervened in the battle. In the end, the Tangyang destroyed 13 mechas, including a Class B mecha division. It also destroyed an enemy mothership, which was a new type of stealth high-speed reconnaissance ship with a tonnage close to that of a medium-sized space cruiser. We rescued 4 people from the small luxury spaceship, one of whom was Mr. Zuo Leheng, a leader in the mecha design industry in my country, and the other 3 were his granddaughter and his 2 bodyguards. They were intercepted halfway from Chang'an Star to Furu Star. There are several things worth our attention in this encounter. First, the location where the infiltration troops from the north were found was at the edge of the Chang'an Starfield, which is already the core area of the Empire's hinterland. And our defense focus has always been on the border area. I think we must strengthen our vigilance in an all-round way and increase the defense of non-border areas, especially the core starfield, including arranging more irregular patrols and various detection equipment and monitoring equipment on some remote waterways. Second, the target of the mission in the north this time is Mr. Zuo Leheng, and I don't think this is an isolated case. Now the top technical talents in all aspects of the Northern Empire are scarce. Therefore, sending infiltration troops to kidnap them is a very good choice. They got the talents, and we suffered a heavy blow. Once talents like Mr. Zuo were abducted or killed, our military and intelligence departments would have to bear huge pressure. This black pot is really something we can't bear. This is more like an upgraded version of the paralysis plan implemented in the north last year. So we should immediately strengthen the protection of such senior technical personnel. At the same time, Mr. Zuo suspected that there was a ghost among the people around him. The Ministry of Internal Affairs and the Military Intelligence Department of the Empire should increase the crackdown on these spies. Third, the enemy's warship actually exploded after being destroyed, which shows that the infiltration troops in the north do not want to be captured at all. According to the ideas of some soldiers in our army, capturing enemy warships and enemy personnel can gain greater military merits, but they do not know that this will lead to the opponent taking drastic measures of mutual destruction when they are desperate, or that is what they originally planned, causing great losses to our side. This situation must be reported to the entire army quickly. It is better to ensure the safety of our soldiers than to take no prisoners. Yes, Leo-san, you are right. Just do it according to your words. The old marshal affirmed his son's opinion. Yes, father. At the same time, the intelligence departments under the Ministry of the Interior of the Empire also received the situation report and began to get busy. They also sent a special investigation team to Chang'an Star. There, the intelligence department found that the nanny of Mr. Zhuo Lehan was killed and the body was buried in the garden. The gardener and Mr. Zhuo's private doctor were missing. In addition, a security guard from Zhuo Leo's private research institute was missing. Chang'an Star was in a state of panic. The intelligence department and the military went all out to hunt down spies from the north and arrested and killed more than 100 people. In the palace of Siberia Star, the Northern Empire, Nicholas the Great was shaking with righteousness. Originally, after he became emperor, he no longer had to be sneaky like before, but could be worshipped openly, which was a great feeling. In the past month, the development of the Northern Empire was relatively smooth, and everything was under his control. The deployment of the army and the expansion of the army were proceeding smoothly and orderly, and the infiltration troops against the Galactic Empire had also been sent out. Especially after the implementation of military control, the strategic materials that Nicholas the Great could allocate were suddenly enriched. Another thing was to issue new currency, to seize the wealth of most big businessmen and big consortiums in his own hands. The poor thing is that those big families who once supported Nicholas's ascension to the throne, they also fantasized that they would get a bigger share of the pie after Nicholas ascended the throne, but they didn't know that Nicholas used some new coins like waste paper to grab the family assets they had accumulated for several lifetimes. Now they regret it, but it's too late. Nicholas has become bigger and stronger, and Chekhov, the Minister of the Interior of the Northern Empire, has begun to sharpen his knife. If there are any voices and actions of opposition, they will be exterminated. They can only pin their hopes on the Northern Empire to win the official war that will start a year later. This is their only way out. However, there are unexpected events. The Northern Heavy Industries, which Nicholas trusts very much, gave the confident Emperor Nicholas a blow. Kasimov, the chief mecha designer of the Northern Heavy Industries, was appointed by Nicholas as the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Industry of the Northern Empire and the Deputy Minister of the General Armament Department of the Northern Empire due to his outstanding achievements over the years. Although Kasimov is a senior technician, he is also a fan of officials. After being appointed to the new position, he completely gave up the work of the Northern Heavy Industries Mecha Laboratory, handed over these tasks to his son Kasimov, and focused on various administrative work by himself, enjoying the feeling of being an official. He enjoyed the feeling of being surrounded by a lot of people flattering him. Chapter 238 Serious Accident. Kasimov's son, Kasimov Jr., is an uneducated second-generation ancestor. He has no real skills, but under the protection of his father over the years, and he is also a man who likes to make money, he has risen all the way, and is also well known within Northern Heavy Industries, so he took over Kasimov's job. Birds of a feather flock together. After taking office, Kasimov Jr. began to place his confidence in the Mecha Research Center and exclude dissidents. The elite soldiers and generals left by his father were all left aside by him, and he promoted and appointed a large number of people who were as good at flattery as him, but had little real skills. As the saying goes, a new official takes 3 fires when he takes office. Only by burning these 3 fires well can he better attract the attention of the superiors, so they turned their attention to the nuclear energy engine project. 2 years ago, under the auspices of Kasimov, Northern Heavy Industries used the drawings of the Tang Dynasty group stolen by commercial spies to copy a micro-controlled nuclear fusion engine, Ice Core number 1. The performance of this engine is acceptable, but due to limitations in materials and other aspects, only 5 Ice Core number 1 engines can be produced each year, and the cost is very high. This is far from enough for Emperor Nicholas the Great. He hopes that Northern Heavy Industries can produce about 500 nuclear mecha engines each year, and hopes that its cost can be greatly reduced. Otherwise the finances of the Northern Empire cannot afford it. Not long after the old Kasimov developed the Ice Core number 1, the young Kasimov gathered a group of his men and began to conduct research on reducing the configuration of the Ice Core number 1. The so-called reduction research is to replace those mechas and accessories with lower value and more common materials and accessories that are too expensive or very rare, so as to increase production and reduce costs while sacrificing some performance. The young Kasimov led his so-called technical research team to come up with several so-called reduction plans for the Ice Core number 1 nuclear engine for Kasimov to see. Kasimov sneered at this and shouted nonsense. However, seeing his son was so motivated, he didn't say anything more and let them do whatever they wanted. Who knew that his laissez-faire attitude towards his son was seen by his son as a kind of recognition and indulgence. Now Kasimov took over the Mecha R&D Center of Northern Heavy Industries, focusing on the nuclear engine reduction project. Coincidentally, a few days later, a so-called reduced configuration Lungsan engine passed all the tests. Kasimov was ecstatic. But what he didn't know was that the reason why this test machine passed the test was because it didn't reduce so many things as marked on the drawing. And with good luck, the engine passed the test on the test bench smoothly. His men cheated like this just to get results as soon as possible to attract the attention of their superiors. Generally, such results can not only get praise from their superiors, but also a little bonus. Although they cheated, there will be many experiments in the future, and they can find ways to make up for it and correct it. In short, cheat the benefits first. Who knew that Kasimov, who was blinded by greed, completely ignored the rigorous scientific attitude and immediately agreed to launch this project. He applied for funding from Emperor Nicholas the Great. Emperor Nicholas the Great could not understand technical drawings, but he could understand experimental parameters and reports. He saw that there was no problem with the experimental parameters, so he gritted his teeth and wrote a big stroke, allocating trillions of star coins and a large amount of precious mineral materials to the northern military industry. Little Kasimov was ecstatic. He ordered his men to work overtime to rush out 10 Ice Core number 1 controlled nuclear fusion engines, officially named Ice Core 1.1 nuclear energy engines, and sent them to several mecha laboratories of Northern Heavy Industry for installation testing. He also specifically asked Nicholas to assign him 10 B-level mecha masters to help him test the nuclear mecha. On February 1st, 2020, when the Northern Empire was just 1 month old, Little Cassie held a grand mecha engine test ceremony, and several mecha research bases simultaneously carried out mecha test operations of the new engine. Emperor Nicholas the Great, who had just finished the morning court, and Manchu civil and military officials watched the test ceremony with interest through video in the palace. He and his ministers were full of confidence. Once Ice Core 1.1 could pass the test, the military strength of the Northern Empire would be greatly improved. Among them, only Kasimov did not think so. When he got the blueprint and looked at it for a while, he broke out in a cold sweat. He had a very ominous premonition. Through the blueprint of the engine, he concluded with his rich experience accumulated over the years that someone must have cheated. Now, he could only pray that nothing would happen. The test ceremony began. There were 10 small screens on the big screen of the palace, connected to 10 mecha test sites, and 10 mechas were ready to go. The spirited little Kasimov gave the order to start the test. The 10 new nuclear mechas on the screen all moved. Warm applause rang out in the palace hall. However, when the output power of each test mecha engine reached 60%, red alarms were issued one after another. Kasimov Jr.'s face turned green, and he yelled, "Quickly check what's going on. Why are the mechas sounding the alarm? Report. 3 mecha engines are overheating, and 2 engines' energy output is out of control. All 10 mechas have experienced radiation leakage." Kasimov Jr. sat down on the ground, his clothes soaked with cold sweat. He sat there in a daze, muttering, "What should I do? What should I do? Stop the experiment quickly." The staff under him reminded, "Oh, yes, quickly, stop the experiment. Report, 7 mecha technicians have fainted, and 2 mecha technicians have lost their vital signs, and cannot execute orders. Useless, remote control, forced shutdown." In just a short while, young Kasimov's eyes were full of bloodshot. The 10 mechas received the remote control command, and landed and stopped one after another. However, the 2 mecha engines with out of control energy output did not stop working, but continued to run at full capacity, and the entire shell of the nuclear engine had been burned red. 10 seconds later, 2 balls of white light burst out onto small screens, and then the video signal was completely interrupted. Old Kasimov, who was in a meeting in the palace, saw black and fainted. The court was in chaos, and no one knew what was happening in front, but everyone's heart was shrouded in a very ominous premonition. Half an hour later, a shocking news came. All the 10 Ice Core 1.1 engines participating in this test had serious radiation leaks, and the mecha operators were severely damaged, with basically no hope of survival. Radiation damage directly destroys human genes, which is something that cannot be solved by the current level of human medicine. What is even more shocking is that in order to make the data look better and make the cost of the engine look lower, the explosion-proof device of the Ice Core 1.1 engine of this mecha was removed. According to convention, only those mecha engines and spacecraft engines that go out to perform special tasks will remove the engine explosion-proof device to facilitate their suicide when captured. Who knew that, in order to save costs, Kasimov and his men did not install engine explosion-proof devices on all nuclear engines. 2 nuclear engines eventually exploded due to loss of control, and it was a nuclear explosion. The 2 mecha test sites and surrounding facilities were completely destroyed, killing more than 3,000 people and seriously injuring more than 5,000 people. Most of these people were senior technicians and soldiers of Northern Heavy Industries. The direct economic losses caused by this accident were more than 4 trillion star coins. The most important thing was that the technical talents of Northern Heavy Industries, who were already very tight, suffered a devastating disaster. Chapter 239 Punishment. Nicholas was completely dumbfounded when he heard the bad news. He sat on the throne for a long time without speaking, and the whole palace hall was dead silent. Nicholas squeezed out 2 words from his teeth for a long time: thorough investigation. He flicked his sleeves and turned to leave the hall, but as soon as he left the sight of everyone, he spit out a mouthful of blood. This was the second time he vomited blood in the past few years. The intelligence department of the Northern Empire took action and investigated the Northern Heavy Industry thoroughly. The entire Northern Heavy Industry was in panic. Except for the grassroots production workshops below, the entire Northern Heavy Industries senior management and R&D center were completely paralyzed. A few days later, the investigation report came out. Kasimov Jr. and his team, led by the Ice Core Engine Reduction Project research team, were fully responsible for the action. The Lungsan 1.1 nuclear engine that passed the test on the test bench was completely disassembled by the technicians. They found that it was almost a complete Ice Core 1 nuclear engine. The technicians below were all cheating, and as the person in charge, Kasimov Jr., driven by interests, only wanted to get promoted and make money, and completely abandoned the rigorous principle of scientific work, which led to this incident. If his father was in that position, he would definitely produce a few more engines to verify it himself. In this accident, the Northern Empire suffered heavy losses. First of all, the mecha research project of Northern Heavy Industries was completely stagnant. The 2 R&D centers were completely destroyed, and a large number of senior technicians died. It will take at least 3 months to resume normal operation. Since it is now a critical period for the Northern Empire's army to have a large number of new mechas about to enter service, the Mecha R&D Center is very busy with the improvement, evaluation, and adaptive modification of mechas. And now, they can only wait for reconstruction. Second, the direct and indirect economic losses caused by this accident are about 6 to 8 trillion star coins. This money can even build a small space fleet, which has brought heavy pressure to the economy of the North. The most important point is that this incident postponed the time for Nicholas to launch a general attack by 1 to 2 months. Now, in the context of the severe blow to the northern economy, the later the war is launched, the more fully prepared the Galactic Empire will be. In the palace hall, Kasimov knelt on the ground, kowtowed, blood all over the ground. He almost fainted, but he didn't dare to stop. He knew Nicholas's character very well. His son committed such a heinous crime, and it was possible that his family would be confiscated and exterminated. Their Kasimov family was a large family with thousands of members, and it was very likely that their lives would be in danger. Chekhov, all the people involved in this report, except for little Kasimov, will have their homes confiscated. The whole family will be executed, and their property will be confiscated. Nicholas' tone was calm, but his simple words determined the fate of tens of thousands of people. Kasimov, do you know your crime? Your Majesty, I'm guilty. I didn't teach my son well, and I failed to supervise, which brought huge losses to the Empire. I hope that your Majesty will let my people go for the sake of my dedication to the Empire over the years. I'm willing to serve your Majesty with my life and soul. As he said this, he kowtowed a few more times. Blood was all over his face and head, and he looked very hideous. Kasimov, your son is ambitious, does not discipline his subordinates, and is stubborn. His actions have caused huge losses to the Empire. It is difficult to convince the people if he is not killed, so he must die. As for your family, it is reasonable to kill them like those people. However, as you said, you have made contributions to the Empire, so your family can be spared the death penalty, but cannot escape the punishment of life. I will confiscate all your family's property to make up for the losses caused this time, and all your family members will be sent to industrial planets as slaves. As for you, I will deprive you of all your official positions, and you will immediately go back to the Mecha Research Center and quickly restore the work of the Mecha Research and Development Center with those technicians, to make up for my mistakes. If you have made achievements, you can redeem your family members with military merits. How about it? Thank you, Your Majesty, for your grace. I will fight to the death, and will not refuse. Kasimov walked through the gates of hell. He shed 2 lines of hot tears with joy. This is not because Nicholas has become kind, but because he really has no high-end mecha talents who can replace Kasimov. In a high-end restaurant at the dock of the Dartsaras space station, more than 70 people gathered in a large multi-purpose hall. 7 or 8 large tables were filled with various delicacies and fine wines. All the members of the Tangyang, except for 10 on-duty personnel, came here. They are here to celebrate Mr. Zuo Lehung's 85th birthday. Except for 10 members of the Royal Guard, other soldiers are allowed to drink and relax. During the long space journey, drinking is prohibited in the warship. Now there is such an opportunity. It is a good choice to let the soldiers relax properly without delaying things. Mr. Zuo Lehung was very emotional. When he was young, no one thought about celebrating his birthday. Later, he was obsessed with work. After he was 80 years old, his students Dr. Emerson and Lee Yun-neo took the initiative to organize a birthday party for him every year. This year's birthday party is special. It feels different to be with a group of young soldiers. The mecha maintenance technicians and mecha masters on the Tangyang took turns to toast to Mr. Zuo. Zuo Lehung served as a technical consultant on the Tangyang ship, and a group of mecha maintenance technicians benefited greatly. Similarly, these mecha masters also benefited. They had the opportunity to improve the performance of their mechas and greatly increased the probability of surviving on the battlefield. Mr. Zuo smiled and expressed his gratitude, but he was old and could not drink so much wine. As a student of Free and Emerson, Xia Xingchen was a junior and had to stop the wine. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 flavors of dishes, the atmosphere on the scene became more and more heated, so the crew began to drink in groups of 3 or 2. Especially Xia Xingchen, because he made a big fuss in the military law department of the Laulant Star space station, avenged his comrades, and made great contributions in 2 battles. He was also the chief instructor of physical training on the Tangyang ship. He has now become the backbone of the soldiers on the Tangyang ship, and his prestige and influence on the ship are close to the 3 giants on the ship. So, Xia Xingchen, who had already helped Mr. Zuo block a round of drinks, accepted all the drinks, and drank another round. Finally, he was unconscious, and was carried back to the Tangyang by Wuja. The soldiers continued to revel, the music sounded, and people began to dance. The royal guards escorted Princess Crossing, who had changed her appearance with a camouflage device, and Mr. Zuo Leheng back to the Tonggyang to rest. Vivian, Zhang Yingying and Zuo King, who lived in the same dormitory with the princess, also returned to the dormitory. Zhang Yingying ran to see Xia Xingchen, who was drunk, and saw that Wu Jie and Bima Wen were taking care of Xia Xingchen, so she left with peace of mind. Chapter 240 Girls' Thoughts. The Tonggyang held a banquet at the Datsala space station to celebrate Mr. Zuo Leheng's 85th birthday. Xia Xingchen was drunk and returned to the Tonggyang with Princess Crossing and Mr. Zuo in advance. Zhang Yingying was worried about Xia Xingchen, so she went to his cabin to visit him first. She found that Xia Xingchen was well taken care of by Yugo and Bimoan, so she returned to her own dormitory. Oh, Miss Yingying has returned from visiting her lover. How is she? Vivian joked. Oh, you are going to die. Zhang Yingying's face turned red. Princess Kinjana asked, Sister Yingying, how is Xingchen? It's okay, his roommate is taking care of him, don't worry. Princess Kinjana nodded, and suddenly the quirky Zuo King came up and said, Sister Kinjana, why did you use the camouflage device to turn into a dark and thin boy today? I use this identity every time I leave Xia Xingchen. His name is Zhao He, which is very vivid. Speaking of which, when I first met Xia Xingchen, I also used this image. Oh, Sister Jaina, tell me, what's going on? Zuo King shouted excitedly. Vivian also came over and said, yes, Sister Jaina, let's learn how to find such an excellent knight. This is a long story. Kinjana said a little embarrassedly. It's okay, the night is long, it's best to listen to stories. Zuo King's eyes were full of expectations. Zhang Yingying also came over. Several girls sat around the table, and Princess Kinjana told the story. The story begins 3 or 4 years ago. At that time, I was a few days away from turning 15. A great noble proposed to my father, wanting me to marry his 16-year-old son. That man was one of the top 3 miners in the Galactic Empire. His son was stupid and fat, with pockmarks all over his face, which made people feel sick. So I secretly escaped from the palace, and left Xia Xingchen. Sister Jaina, Xia Xingchen and the royal guards are on high alert. How did you escape? Zhang Yingying asked curiously. As princesses of the royal family, while other children were still playing happily, we were receiving training in various courses, including intelligence gathering, Macup escape and other courses. The teachers of the Royal Elders Council said that it is always good to have many skills, and this knowledge will be useful sooner or later. It seems that they are right. What's more, I had the most advanced camouflage device in the Milky Way at that time, so it was not difficult to escape. The reason why I chose the image of Zhao He is that this image is not eye-catching and will not be taken seriously if thrown into a crowd of people. I have been to many planets for 7 or 8 months, including a mining planet. I have also lived with the miners and done various jobs. Although it is very tiring, it is very free and happy, and there are not so many rules to restrict you. Later, I came to the 23rd colony planet, Manastar. As a result, the spaceship was hijacked by a group of star pirates on the way, and the people on our ship were taken to the secret base of the Black Fox star pirates. There were thousands of people taken here at the same time. Among them, those who were not imperial citizens of the miners were executed by the star pirates. My miner identity certificate was issued by the Imperial Intelligence Department, which was almost genuine, and the star pirates did not find any flaws. In the secret base of the Black Fox star pirates, these miners were engaged in heavy physical labor under the supervision of whips and guns all day long. Those who were sick or could not hold on would be thrown into space every day. Every 2 or 3 days, a spaceship would send the newly captured miners here. The women among the miners had an even more miserable fate. They were abused by the star pirates. Some were locked up as their playthings, and some were sold to interstellar slave traders and sold to brothels on remote planets. At this point, Zhang Yingying and Zuo King were silent. It was the first time they knew that there was such a dark place in the universe. Miss Vivian looked normal. She had heard about the brutality of space pirates when she was very young and went on space travel with her father. She didn't find it strange at all. Princess Crossing continued. At that time, I was a little desperate. The secret base was an abandoned resource satellite. The only way to leave there was to steal a mecha or a spaceship. However, the space pirates were heavily guarded, and I never found a chance. The more serious problem was that the energy of my camouflage device could not last for a few days. Once my identity was exposed, my fate would be very miserable. Several girls could feel the urgency at that time, especially Zuoking, who was about the same age as Xingchen back then. A beautiful girl full of youthfulness fell into the hands of a group of vicious space pirates. The fate of her can be imagined. In order to escape, I would sneak out of the house every night after the guards fell asleep to look for an opportunity to escape. Finally one day, I found a boy stealing mental potions from the pirate warehouse. I went up to persuade him, and we worked together. He stole the key from the guard, and I took him to rob a Black Duke mecha, and finally escaped from the resource satellite. The pirates came out in full force, and chased them hard. They used mental bombs, and I was injured, and unable to drive the mecha. Xia Xingchen replaced me in driving the mecha. In the end, we survived the life and death struggle, and were rescued by the garrison of Manastar. Later, Mr. Hu came to Manastar to pick me up in person. In exchange for my agreement to go back, the garrison of Manastar sent a large force to wipe out the Black Fox pirates. When I left, Xingchen was still in a deep coma, and his mental power was seriously overdrawn. We were together for only one day. At that time, I only knew that his name was Xia Xingchen, and that he was a miner on Manastar. I originally thought that we would never meet again, but fate is so magical that it connects us together again. I heard that he was framed by the local chief executive on Manastar, and was forced to participate in the death mecha fight. As a result, Xingchen killed the chief executive's son very proudly, and was discovered and appreciated by General von Klosch. He joined the Third Fleet, and participated in the battle on Watchstar. Later, he made military achievements, and came to the Imperial Military Command Academy to study. He also won the championship of the Xia Neo Star Mecha fighting competition last year. We can meet again. It's so wonderful, what a touching story. Zuoking murmured. Yes, any woman, in that desperate situation, if a man stands up to save her, this woman will fall in love with him 100%. Is that right, Princess Jaina? Zhang Yingying said teasingly. Through the princess's narration, she could understand Xingchena's feelings for Xia Xingchen, but she felt a little sad. Chapter 241 Girls' Thoughts. The Tangyang was moored at the Dartsaras space station. Princesses Xingchena, Zhang Yingying, Zuoking and Vivian were talking about Xia Xingchen in the dormitory. Xingchena told the story of how he met Xia Xingchen until now. Zhang Yingying felt a little sour in her heart. She could feel the love and attachment that Princess Xingchena had for Xia Xingchen. Xingchena's face was red. In order to ease the awkward atmosphere, Zhang Yingying told about how she, Vivian and Xia Xingchen went to the Death Star region to train together at this time last year, saved William Krupp on the way, and what happened at the Death Star Sea Hotel. She also told the story between Xia Xingchen and Freya. Although Xingchena, Zhang Yingying and Vivian had heard Xia Xingchen's story, they still shed sad and touching tears, not to mention Zuoking who heard this story for the first time. The little beauty cried so hard that she couldn't speak. Xingchena saw Zhang Yingying's performance and guessed that she liked Xia Xingchen very much. She thought for a long time and said to Zhang Yingying, Sister Yingying, to tell you the truth, Xingchen is my good friend, but he is not my real guardian knight. He agreed to pretend to be my knight in order to help me. Now he only has Sister Freya in his heart and can't tolerate other women. To be honest, I have fallen in love with Xia Xingchen, and I can see that you like Xingchen too. But don't worry, a man as outstanding as Xia Xingchen is destined to have more than one partner, and I won't use the identity of a princess to pressure you. We may become a family in the future. So we must work together to help Xingchen get revenge now. As for the future, no one can say for sure now, so let it go. We will be good sisters in the future. Princess Crossing stretched out her hand to Zhang Yingying. Zhang Yingying was very moved, and her hand was tightly held with Xingchena. Vivian was stunned on the side. These two women here are considered to be confessing their absence to Xia Xingchen, and even the future path has been planned. What surprised her even more was that Princess Crossing Kinjana actually agreed to marry Xia Xingchen with Zhang Yingying. The Galactic Empire allows polygamy, but it is based on the principle of equality and voluntariness of both parties to form a polygamous family. If a man wants to marry more wives, he must obtain the consent of his married wife. Kinjana is a princess of the Galactic Empire. In the nearly 1,000 years of history of the Galactic Empire, there are no more than 10 imperial princes-in-law with multiple wives, and most of them are important officials of the empire or indispensable talents. It is very difficult for a prince-in-law to marry multiple wives in the Galactic Empire, because it involves the face of the royal family after all. At this time, Zuo King, who loves to stir up trouble and spread gossip on weekdays, sat there silently. Zuo King, like Li Qiru, was born in a family of mecha designers. She has a high talent for mecha design, and is very passionate about this industry. Just like Li Qiru, she has also been determined to marry the most powerful mecha designer since she was a child. Later, when she was a little older, she found that those mecha designers who were better than her were already old men over 30 years old and close to 40 years old, and basically had a boyfriend. Later, Xia Xingchen emerged in the mecha maintenance design competition. She noticed this talented young man. Although she was not very convinced, Xia Xingchen did look a little better than her. Especially his design was praised by many people around him, and she also developed a strong interest in Xia Xingchen. Once a woman becomes interested in a man, she is very likely to fall in love with him. Later, at Xiaoyi's coming of age ceremony, she met this legendary boy. A very humble and quiet boy, a little handsome, with a melancholy and deep look in his eyes. At that moment, Zuo King's heartstrings were moved. Relying on her young age, she took the initiative to provoke Xia Xingchen. In fact, just to attract Xia Xingchen's attention. Just now, after listening to the stories of Princess Kinjana and Zhang Yingying, she realized that this man had such a rich experience, and Xia Xingchen was such an outstanding man. She found herself falling in love with this man who had only met a few times. Thinking of this, her face turned red, and she even felt her face was a little hot. But for the sake of her future happiness, Zuo King plucked up the courage and said, "Sisters, I'm determined to marry the most outstanding mecha designer. But after so long, I found that probably only Xia Xingchen can meet this standard. I think my appearance, ability, and background are a match for Xingchen, and I can definitely help. If you two sisters don't mind, just add me in, and from now on, we will be a family." Kinjana and Zhang Yingying were surprised at first, and then they both laughed. They each held one of Zuo King's hands. "Welcome to join, Sister Zuo King." Poor Xia Xingchen fell asleep on the bed after getting drunk. He had no idea that in the cabin not far from him, 3 women had already divided up his future partner's position. Zhang Yingying looked at Vivian. "Sister Vivian, you are not going to snatch Xia Xingchen from us, are you? What a joke. I'm 5 years older than Xia Xingchen. I will not fall for such a kid. Besides, I already have someone in my heart. I will not betray Perlo. My Perlo is my type." After hearing what Zhang Yingying said, Vivian jumped up like a cat with its tail plucked. "Then in this case, please ask Sister Vivian to keep it a secret for us. Don't worry, 3 boss ladies, I won't tell you, even if you kill me." No words were spoken that night, and the Tangyang set out on its journey again. It would take another 4 days of space travel from here to the Watchstar space station. Time is precious, and cannot be wasted. Mr. Zuo Lehong continued to train the mecha maintenance technicians on the Tangyang. The content of today's course is how to improve the speed of mecha maintenance. So all the people attending the class here are mecha maintenance technicians, plus a young lady Zuo King, and the others were dragged away for inhumane physical training and martial arts training. On the mecha maintenance operating table in front of him is a Space Knight mecha. As mecha maintenance technicians, the speed of mecha maintenance will directly determine your fate in the future war. Especially since our Tangyang is a mecha cruiser, and mecha is the main means of attack. The most important task for us is to have more mechas operating normally in the shortest time. Chapter 242 How to Improve Efficiency. Sergeant Roy, how long will it take to disassemble this Space Knight mecha into its basic parts, and then assemble it again? Well, Sergeant Roy thought for a while, about 16 hours. They also have this assessment item when they are conducting the assessment of intermediate mecha repairers, requiring mecha repairers to complete the disassembly and assembly of mechas within 20 hours, while the assessment of senior mecha repairers requires mecha repairers to complete this subject within 10 hours. Too slow. I have consulted relevant information. In the previous space wars, there was an average of 1 exchange of fire between space warships every 8 hours. Now that the performance of mechas and warships has been greatly improved, the time interval of this exchange of fire will be shortened. For mecha cruisers like us, the damaged mechas have not been repaired before the next battle begins. What do you rely on to fight? Xingchen, how long can you get it done? Mr. Zuo, I can't tell you clearly. I used to be in the ground force and have never disassembled and assembled a Space Knight mecha, but I can try. It shouldn't take too long. Xia Xingchen explained. Okay, you try it. Xia Xingchen nodded, put on the universal mechanical repair arm, and came to the mecha maintenance operation table. With his inside skill fully activated, all the structures, wires, and bolts of the Space Knight mecha in front of him came into view. Begin. Mr. Zuo gave the order. Xia Xingchen suddenly jumped up 3 or 4 meters high and jumped to the door of the cockpit. This is the advantage of being in a weightless condition, saving effort. The macro motor on the universal repair mechanical arm started to rotate, and in the blink of an eye, the door of the cockpit had been removed. Then, Xia Xingchen entered a state of ecstasy, and his movements were carried out step by step like flowing water. The mecha technicians held their breath. They had seen the scenes of those senior mecha repair technicians disassembling and assembling mechas in some videos, but none of them had a greater impact than Xia Xingchen. 54 minutes later, the Space Knight mecha in front of them had become a pile of basic accessories, and everyone immediately took a breath of cold air. Xia Xingchen signaled to Mr. Zuo that he had finished disassembling and assembling. Mr. Zuo nodded to indicate that he knew. Xia Xingchen quickly began to assemble the mecha again. Assembling a mecha is much more difficult than disassembling it. The biggest difficulty is that you first have to find the one you need from the thousands of accessories you want, which will waste a lot of time. Then after the accessories are installed, the gaps must be adjusted so that the accessories cannot get stuck. Moreover, there are many ways and orders to remove some accessories, but there is only one order to install accessories. This is not a problem for Xia Xingchen. His inside skills allow him to scan the accessories he needs at the first time, and his mental power level of up to level 26 makes his brain a high-speed optical brain. The design drawings of the Space Knight mecha have long been completely imprinted in his mind. He has already calculated what to do in each step and what to do next, and then just follow the flow. 72 minutes later, the pile of scattered basic accessories turned into a complete mecha again. Xia Xingchen connected the detection computer on the mecha maintenance operation table and started the power of the mecha. A few minutes later, a few big green words popped up on the large screen of the mecha maintenance operation table. All systems are normal. The time displayed on the timer at this time was 72 minutes, which means that Xia Xingchen only took 126 minutes, a little more than 2 hours, to complete the disassembly and assembly of a Space Knight mecha. Boom. The mecha maintenance technicians watching were in a mess. Really? Is this really the first time? Look at Xingchen, then look at us. We are just trash, oh my god. Are you going to let us live? Zuo King, who was watching from the side, showed endless admiration in his eyes. Mr. Zuo Leham showed an expression of approval on his face. When he was young, it took him 180 minutes at most to disassemble and assemble such a mecha, which was already a very good result, because he did not have the inside skill to assist him after all. However, Mr. Zuo Leham believed that Xia Xingchen was telling the truth. This was not his best result. If he could get familiar with it for a while, he could be faster. Xingchen, tell us about your experience. How did you do it? Xia Xingchen organized his words and said, there are 3 main points to disassembling and assembling a mecha quickly. First, be attentive. I have memorized the design drawings and maintenance guides of various general purpose mechas such as the Space Knight mecha. So even if I have not completely disassembled and assembled the Space Knight mecha, I can still do it to this level. They are like a part of my body, and I'm very familiar with their structure. Second, practice makes perfect. When I was in Watchster, my teacher Free did not teach me how to troubleshoot at the beginning. Instead, he found various mechas for me to disassemble and assemble, and even asked me to find parts from the scrap mecha parts in a warehouse to assemble a mecha. My first personal mecha was assembled from old parts. When you disassemble and assemble a mecha hundreds of times, your speed will not be slow. Third, develop good habits. These habits include, the parts should be placed reasonably and orderly after being disassembled. Think about the next step of work when doing one step. Constantly summarize how to operate at work to save time. Develop these good habits, plus continue to master the operation. You may surpass me one day. Xia Xingchen finished speaking, and the mecha maintenance technicians in the maintenance workshop gave Xia Xingchen a thunderous applause. Okay, starting today, I'll apply to Captain Van Horn for special approval of 5 mechas, and let you take turns to disassemble and assemble them. Those who haven't lined up should look at the drawings carefully. Disband. Zuo Lehen gave the order. The Death Star region. Many people think it is the edge of this vast universe, but in fact it is not. From the edge of the Death Star region to the depths of the Death Star region, about 8 Milky Way diameters away, there is a huge black hole. Chapter 243 The Threat of the Celestial Beings. The diameter of this black hole is as big as the diameter of the solar system. There is nothing within hundreds of thousands of light years around it. The huge gravitational field turns all objects that try to approach it, including light, into basic particles, and compresses them into extremely dense black hole particles. Surrounding this black hole, there are billions of galaxies of different sizes like the Milky Way. Many of these galaxies are even dozens of times larger than the Milky Way. It is the core of the universe known to mankind. At the other end of the black hole, billions of light years away, there is a hidden wormhole. At the other end of the wormhole, there is a separate space, the size of which is about the same as the capital administrative district of the Milky Way. There are thousands of huge stars in this separate space, and huge honeycomb-shaped buildings are built on them. The surface of the building is shining with blue light, and countless huge spaceships are transporting precious minerals, energy and technological products plundered from other galaxies from outside the wormhole to each honeycomb. This space is the base of a very aggressive race in the universe, the Heavenly Man, and its name is Dar es Salaam. On the largest planet in Dar es Salaam, there is a huge honeycomb-shaped building. This building is different from others. It is shining with white light. Inside the building, the royal family of the celestial beings are holding a meeting. The celestial beings are a highly developed race. They have evolved for hundreds of millions of years, and have been intelligent creatures for tens of millions of years. Adult celestial beings are about 2 meters tall. Their stature is similar to that of humans, but their heads are twice the length of ordinary humans. They have a large brain capacity, so they appear very tall. Celestial beings evolved from reptiles. They are cold-blooded creatures with thick scales to protect their bodies. Male celestial beings look like upright lizards. They have ferocious faces, sharp teeth, sharp claws, and a thick tail behind them. Each male celestial being is muscular and simple-minded. They can do nothing but fight and mate. Female celestial beings look like another creature. They have beautiful faces like human women, soft body lines, and soft small scales on their skin. Female celestial beings are extremely intelligent and have strong mental strength. They are also a social form with matriarchal clans as the ruling class. The queen is their supreme ruler. At this moment, in this huge building, the queen of the celestial beings is communicating with dozens of female celestial beings who have returned from various galaxies in the universe. The celestial beings, like reptiles, do not have vocal cords, so they cannot communicate by sound, and can only make hissing sounds. They communicate directly through their spiritual seas, connected by spiritual power. This way of communication is very advanced. First of all, this way of communication is not limited by distance and space. As long as the spiritual powers of the celestial beings can contact each other, they can communicate. For example, in space, there is no air and sound cannot be transmitted, but there is no such limitation for spiritual power communication. Second, this way of communication is very flexible. The celestial beings can choose to communicate with specific individuals, or they can choose to communicate with hundreds of thousands of individuals at the same time. Even if the spiritual power coverage of a celestial being is limited, other celestial beings can act as information relay stations to transmit information to farther places. Third, it can guarantee the integrity of the information to the greatest extent. For example, the picture seen by a celestial being and the things felt by it can be fully conveyed to another celestial being through spiritual power communication. Especially in the inheritance of science and culture, this way of inheritance can ensure that knowledge and experience are 100% passed down without any loss. This is also an important reason why the celestial beings have been invincible in the universe for tens of millions of years. The celestial beings have been expanding, plundering, and killing since the day when their technological level reached the level that allowed them to lead Dar es Salaam. They have a strong sense of crisis. In their view, all intelligent races are threats to the celestial beings. With Dar es Salaam as the center, they continue to expand outward, plundering the resources, energy, technology, etc. of these intelligent races until the civilization is completely destroyed. Then, the celestial beings will continue to attack the next target. My queen, our reconnaissance team has discovered that on the other side of the celestial core, there is a galaxy with a high level of civilization. They call themselves the Milky Way. Their level of civilization development and military force are enough to pose a threat to us. I suggest that we quickly send a fleet to kill this civilization. A female celestial being suggested. The celestial core it is talking about is a huge black hole in space. We can only send a small fleet first. It will take at least 10 years, the time unit of the celestials, which is approximately equal to 10 years of human beings, for the large force to arrive there. We may not be able to defeat them if we send a small force in the early stage. The queen of the celestials is named Anaya, the wisest female creature among the celestials. Queen, our celestial warriors are not afraid of any opponent. We send celestial warriors to wage wars continuously, not to let them die, but to open up living space for our race and eliminate future threats. The race called humans in that galaxy has lived in war and killing since the day they gained wisdom. They have even developed powerful weapons that can destroy their own race and habitat. Although their technological level is still a certain distance away from ours, it is still possible to cause great harm to our people. Now we are facing a huge evolutionary crisis, so we cannot launch a full-scale attack before the large force arrives. However, they seem to be engaged in a civil war. We can help the weaker party at the right time, let them consume their strength in the internal struggle, and when their civil war ends and both sides are injured, we will launch an attack. Queen Anna made a decision. The Milky Way, humans have entered the vision of the gods, and human society is about to face a huge crisis. The Tangyang high-speed mecha cruiser arrived at the Watchstar. After a brief rest, the Tangyang was ready to continue its journey. At this time, Brigadier General Wiedenfeller, the commander of the Watchstar space station garrison, personally visited the ship. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244, Changes in the Death Star Hotel. Commodore Wiedenfeller came to the captain's room. Already waiting here were the three giants of the Tangyang, Princess Crossing and old butler Hu Rangshan. Zhang Yingying was also brought here to listen. Captain Van Horn thought highly of her. The captain turned on the communicator, and the other end was General von Klosch, commander of the 3rd Fleet. Commodore Wiedenfeller, please tell us in detail what you have learned. General von Klosch said. Yes, General. After we went to war with the North, a large number of exploration ships left the Death Star Sea Hotel. 20 days ago, a large number of escort fleets of the Death Star Sea Hotel also left there and headed for the border area. However, after 15 days, no ships came from that direction. 10 days ago, we sent 2 medium-sized cruisers and 4 small reconnaissance ships to investigate the Death Star Sea Hotel. The order I gave them was that no matter what happened, the primary goal was to send back intelligence as soon as possible. However, 4 days have passed and they have not heard from them. I suspect that a huge change has occurred in the Death Star Sea Hotel. Therefore, I suggest terminating Her Royal Highness's mission this time, and continuing the mission after the situation of the Death Star C Hotel is clear. Brigadier General Wiedenfeller introduced the situation and expressed his concerns. What is the current situation of the hotel in the Death Star C? General von Klausch asked. Originally, the Death Star Hotel had 4 major forces: the Death Star Hotel Guard, the Galactic Freedom Army, the Brotherhood of Pirates and the Equinovi Pirates, in addition to hundreds of small pirate forces. But nearly a year ago, the brothers Alfonso and Alonso of the Brotherhood of Pirates were killed, and the entire Brotherhood of Pirates fell apart. The balance of power in the Death Star Hotel was broken from then on. A large number of small pirate groups were incorporated by Equinovi, and the Galactic Freedom Army took the opportunity to wipe out a large number of pirates, and obtained a large amount of supplies. Moreover, a large number of miners have come here over the past year, and the strength of the Galactic Freedom Army has also expanded a lot. After the North declared independence, the tens of thousands of hotels in the Northern Administrative District of the Galaxy Hotel Group became Nicholas's private property, and the Galaxy Hotel Group suffered heavy losses. The top management of the Galaxy Hotel Group was very angry. They drew forces from the hotel escort fleets across the Milky Way to form 4 large fleets. Volunteers went to the border areas to support the local army and attack the infiltration fleet in the north. Nearly half of the troops were withdrawn from the Death Star Hotel this time. It is estimated that this has once again broken the balance of power here. Now it should be either Equinovi who wins, or the Galactic Freedom Army who wins. In short, it is very tricky. Your Highness, you have heard it. The situation is unclear and it will be very dangerous. I also suggest that you temporarily suspend the mission and make a decision when the situation becomes clear. Von Klausch thought about it, and he also felt that the princess's safety was the first priority. General, I appreciate your kindness, but the situation is very critical now. Most of the high-ranking officials and main forces of the Galaxy Freedom Army are in the Death Star Hotel. Once they are eliminated, the power of the Galaxy Freedom Army and the Miners' Liberation Organization in various parts of the Milky Way will be out of control. If Nicholas takes this opportunity to incite and use this power, it will bring great disaster to our empire. So, we must go this time. If the Galaxy Freedom Army wins, we are expressing our goodwill. If they are under attack, we are just in time to help them. But it's too dangerous. If the pirates control the Death Star Hotel, this trip will definitely be dangerous. So I suggest you wait a few days. We will send out a reconnaissance fleet. In addition, please ask General von Klausch to send a fleet to support us as soon as possible. Brigadier General Wiedenfeller disagreed with this proposal. General von Klausch, if your third fleet sends reinforcement now, how long will it take for them to get here? Princess Xingchen asked. Von Klausch thought for a moment and said, the nearest fleet that can be mobilized is in the Chang'an starfield. It will take about 6 days to assemble the troops plus the time on the road, and another 3 days to reach the Death Star Hotel. Then, General Wiedenfeller, how many troops can be mobilized to the Watchstar space station? Our Watchstar garrison fleet originally had 10 medium-sized cruisers, but now 2 have lost contact, and we have 8 medium-sized cruisers left. We must ensure that 6 cruisers are on duty to protect the safety of the space station and the Watchstar field. The most I can mobilize is 2 medium cruisers, 10 small high-speed cruisers and a large comprehensive supply ship. But I feel that this is a drop in the bucket. As far as I know, Equinovi now has at least 20 medium-sized warships and more than 2,000 small spaceships under his command. The difference in strength is too great. Please think twice, Princess. Commendations. Can I tell you what I think? Zhang Yingying stood up and said. But you can say it. First of all, the princess is right. Once the Galactic Freedom Army is destroyed, no matter what remedial measures we take, it will be useless. The most important thing is that the impact on the Empire is too great. In addition, I don't know if you have thought about it. Once the Death Star Hotel is occupied by the Star Pirates, they will collude with Nicholas, which will greatly tie down our forces. If left alone, they will send people to harass the Watchstar region and its surroundings. And if we send a large force to encircle and suppress them, the troops cannot be stationed there for a long time. When they drill into the Death Star region, where will we go to destroy them? At that time, they will become a nail that greatly ties down our energy. Therefore, we must contact the Galactic Freedom Army immediately. Whether it is to express sincerity or to provide timely assistance, this matter cannot be delayed. As for the deployment of troops, this is what I think. First of all, General von Klorsch's reinforcement must be sent. After all, the Star Pirates are very weak, so there is no need to dispatch the main fleet. Let the 6th Fleet come and treat it as a training exercise. Second, General Wiedenfuller, please send out the troops you just mentioned. There are two main purposes for sending them. One is to cover up the whereabouts of our Tangayang, and the other is that they can search along the route to find out what happened. As long as they are careful and not surrounded, the safety of this force should be no problem. Once an abnormality is found, they will return to the ship and report it immediately. Third, our Tangayang will set out with the fleet and then leave the team halfway and approach the Death Star Hotel from a direction far away from the route. Please rest assured that we will not act rashly when the situation is unclear. Chapter 245. Ready to go. Zhang Yingying expressed her opinion on this operation. It's just nonsense. Brigadier General Wiedenfuller interrupted Zhang Yingying. You are an ignorant girl. The first two things you said make sense, but the third point is just a joke. Do you know how dangerous it is to leave the main channel here? There are a huge number of asteroids, space debris, and even small black holes. It is very common to get lost or crash here. Moreover, once your warship is surrounded by a large number of space pirate mechas in the asteroid belt, you will definitely die. The most important thing is that the princess is on your ship, and you can't let her take such risks. Princess Crossing said, General Wiedenfuller is wrong. You soldiers and countless citizens of the Empire are willing to sacrifice their lives for this country. As a member of the royal family, I should do the same. What's the big deal about taking a little risk? Zhang Yingying also added, General, you don't know that as the co-pilot of the Tangayang and the main pilot of our ship, Sergeant Vivian, I came to the Death Star region for trial more than 10 months ago. We stayed in the Death Star Sea Hotel in the periphery of the Death Star region for nearly 2 months and eliminated a large number of Star Pirates. Therefore, we are very familiar with the waterways and astronomical information here. Another thing you don't know is that the two mecha divisions who killed the leaders of the Brothers Star Pirates, Alfonso and Alonso, were Hao Cheng, the Guardian Knight of the Moon Princess Kinfanger, and Xia Xingchen, the Guardian Knight of the Star Princess Kinjana. Both of them are now on the Tangayang ship. At that time, they were driving ordinary mechas. In this year, their strength has improved by leaps and bounds, and they have also replaced nuclear engines, and their combat effectiveness is even stronger. The two have now reached the strength of being able to single out B-class mecha divisions. Moreover, there is also Mr. Hurangshan, an A-class mecha division. Even if we face 2 or 3 main reconnaissance ships in the north, we will not fall behind. How much threat do you think those mobs will pose to us? This Brigadier General Wiedenfuller was speechless for a moment. He didn't expect that this group of people turned out to be so powerful. I think what Lieutenant Zhang Yingying said makes sense. Let's do it this way. I will quickly assemble the troops. Brigadier General Wiedenfuller, please cooperate. There are also the following points to note. First, I will send 50 medium-sized cruisers and 100 high-speed reconnaissance ships to support. Due to the emergency, I will not send supply ships, which can save at least 1 day on the road. At that time, they will be directly supplied at the Watchstar space station. In addition, 2 large comprehensive supply ships will be sent from you to participate in the operation. Second, the plan of this operation will be carried out according to the suggestions of Lieutenant Zhang Yingying. I authorize her to fully command this operation. Third, confidentiality must be done well. Fourth, the infiltration troops in the north are now wreaking havoc everywhere, and the security situation is not good. Security work in Watchstar and its surrounding areas must be strengthened. General von Krausch finally made a decision. Yes, General. Wiedenfuller and the 3 giants of the Tangayang saluted, cut off the communication, and went down to prepare. They set out for the Death Star Hotel early the next morning. Although General Wiedenfuller agreed to carry out the order, he was a little unhappy. This was simply a child's play. Such an important and dangerous mission was actually commanded by a girl who was less than 20 years old. He always had a knot in his heart. At this moment, someone sent a communication request to his personal terminal. It turned out to be General von Krausch. Wiedenfuller, are you unhappy again? Let me tell you about this. No one is more suitable to command such a battle than Zhang Yingying. I'll show you a file. Destroy it after reading it. Keep it confidential. General von Krausch knows the character of each of his generals very well. Brigadier General Wiedenfuller is a very opinionated man with a strong sense of self-esteem. This time, if he is forced to follow Zhang Yingying's advice, he will definitely be unhappy and upset. General von Krausch only said this sentence and cut off the communication. Then a document was passed. General Wiedenfuller opened the document and was stunned. Zhang Yingying is really not an ordinary child. First of all, let's talk about her family background. Her grandfather is the Chief of Staff of the Galactic Empire and one of the only 2 5-star admirals in the Galactic Empire. And her father, Admiral Zhang Yuan, is the commander of the First Fleet. Look at her resume again. Zhang Yingying, 18 years old, commanded space battleships in battle at the age of 12 and achieved amazing results. At the age of 15, she began to command battles on the scale of a squadron, which can be said to be outstanding. However, in order to avoid gossip, the Zhang family did not count these military exploits on Zhang Yingying, otherwise she would have been a brigadier general now. Moreover, Zhang Yingying has participated in various simulated fleet command, military chess simulation, and real-time strategy competitions since she was a child, and she has undoubtedly won the championship. Looking at this series of impressive achievements, Wiedenfuller finally understood why Admiral von Krausch attached so much importance to Zhang Yingying. After a night of intense preparations, the Tangyang finally embarked on the journey to the Death Star C Hotel. Tangyang, engine power 70%, 200,000 away from the Watchstar space station, expected to enter the range of influence of mysterious particles in one day. Watch B01 and Watch B02 high-speed cruisers engine power 80%. The comprehensive supply ship Shancheng engine power 90%. They have cancelled the automatic driving. The other warships in the fleet are all normal. Zhang Yingying still sat in the co-pilot's seat, where she could get fleet information at the first time. Okay, Yingying, the Tangyang ship and the reconnaissance fleet are under your full command. Captain Van Horn finished speaking and left the cockpit. He was very confident in Zhang Yingying's ability, and he himself was happy to be idle. Since we have entered the combat zone, the physical training and martial arts training on the Tangyang have been temporarily adjusted. The amount of training has been reduced. Every day, we just warm up to ensure that our bodies are in the best condition. The mecha maintenance technicians have also stopped practicing the disassembly and assembly of mechas. They are carefully checking each mecha and preparing to attack at any time. Zuo Leo took Xia Xingchen to teach him some high-end mecha design knowledge. More than 10 hours later, the Tangyang arrived at the designated location. Attention all members of the S02 task force. The front is about to enter the area affected by the mysterious particles at a distance of 500,000. All ships please quickly adjust their formations, with Watch B01 and Watch B02 as the center, and deploy a search formation with the maximum detection distance in all directions. The Tangyang will leave the fleet as planned, and the command of the fleet will be temporarily handed over to the Watch B01 cruiser. All ships are requested to cruise at 80% of the current speed. Remember not to advance rashly. Under the premise of ensuring safety, the most important task is to obtain information about the Death Star Hotel. Tangyang's channel will descend 20 and leave the fleet. The other warships of the S02 task force said they had received the order and quickly adjusted their formations and modified their speeds. The Tangyang slowly slowed down from below the fleet, allowing the fleet to pass from above. After they were out of the detection range of the probe, Zhang Yingying gave the order, Tangyang, adjust the course to position 75, 65, and 47. Cancel the autopilot. The engine output power is 80%. The main gun is charged, the close-in defense gun is charged, and prepare to enter the asteroid zone. Understood, Commander. Chapter 246, The Situation at the Death Star Hotel. In the past year, the Aquinovi Pirates, the largest pirate organization on the edge of the Death Star region, has grown rapidly. The leaders of their old rival brothers pirates, the brothers Alfonso and Alonso, were killed in the duel, causing the brothers pirates to be leaderless and disintegrate. Aquinovi took the opportunity to recruit nearly half of the brothers pirates, especially more than a dozen medium-sized warships, which greatly increased his strength. The only thing that made him unhappy was the Galactic Freedom Army, which kept sending miners to the Death Star region, and their size was also expanding rapidly. Half a year ago, several people came to the Death Star Sea Hotel. The leader was a blonde lady. Her name was Eva, and she was a B-class mecha master. She also brought 2 C-class mecha masters and 10 D-class mecha masters. Eva was from the Special Operations Department of the Military Intelligence Bureau of the Northern Empire, the former Northern Administrative Region, and her direct superior was Yuri. Her purpose of coming here is to recruit the Star Pirates here, to drive a nail into the back of the Galactic Empire, so that their military strength is restrained, and the rich resources of the Death Star region can also ease the material pressure of the Northern Empire. However, the economy of the North is already very difficult, and it is very unrealistic to send warships from the Northern Empire to here, which requires a very long distance in the hinterland of the Galactic Empire. Moreover, the role of star coins here is not as obvious as in other regions. However, Nicholas can't recruit them for nothing, so the cunning Yuri offers a plan. He doesn't have money or warships, but he has people who can send a beauty and a few mecha divisions. What Aquinovi lacks most now is high-end combat talents. At this time, Nicholas sent a B-class mecha division, 2 C-class mecha divisions and 10 D-class mecha divisions. This is definitely a timely help for Aquinovi. More importantly, Aquinovi, who is almost 60 years old this year, is an old pervert. He can't move his feet when he sees a beautiful woman. But this Eva is a real beauty. Although she is already 40 years old, there is no sign of aging. Her skin is so tender that it seems that water can be squeezed out of it. Moreover, she has received special training from the Intelligence Department of the North and has a deep attainment in bed skills. She is also good at psychology. Years of intelligence work have enabled her to easily play with men. After the welcoming banquet for Eva and others, Eva and Aquinovi rolled into bed. As a result, the old guy got addicted and fell deeply in love with Eva. From then on, the two of them were together all day long, and Aquinovi obeyed Eva's words. This Eva is also a very powerful woman in mecha combat and combat command. She brought several mecha divisions from the north, and helped Aquinovi's Star Pirate group deal with those scattered small Star Pirate groups every now and then. This further expanded the scale of Aquino's Star Pirate group. With the official declaration of independence of the Northern Empire on January 1st, 2020, Eva also received instructions from the Northern Empire to take control of the Death Star Hotel and integrate the Star Pirate forces outside the Death Star region in order to contain the Galactic Empire. This was originally a difficult task to accomplish. After all, the Death Star Hotel has more than 100 medium-sized escort warships, coupled with the 30 medium-sized warships and 500 small spaceships of the Galactic Freedom Army. If they fight hard, the losses will be very large. But at this moment, a huge pie fell from the sky. The 50 medium-sized warships of the Death Star Hotel were actually transferred away. So Aquinovi and Eva discussed it, and 2 days after the 50 escort fleets left, they launched a full-scale attack on the Death Star Hotel and the base of the Galactic Freedom Army. Aquinovi dispatched nearly 2,000 small spaceships and 30 medium-sized warships to raid several secret bases of the Galactic Freedom Army in the Death Star region and sneak attack the patrol fleet of the Death Star Hotel. However, the pirates were too large in scale, and the news that Aquinovi was going to launch an attack leaked out in advance. Xia Xingchen was able to escape to the Death Star Hotel in advance with 10 medium-sized warships and 5 large transport ships. Their base was destroyed, and almost all other ships were killed. Although Aquinovi had an absolute advantage in the number of troops, they were composed of scattered soldiers after all. In order to destroy the 30 medium-sized warships of the Galaxy Freedom Army and the hotel's patrol fleet, they paid a huge price of losing more than 1,500 small ships and 8 medium-sized warships. The main reason was that the soldiers of the Galaxy Freedom Army always adopted a suicidal tactic before they died, and several bases took the form of self-destruction after being occupied by the pirates. A few days later, they paid the price of nearly 100 small ships to annihilate the patrol fleet sent by the Watchstar space station. Faced with a huge loss, Aquinovi was very painful, but Eva assured him that he would be appreciated and reused by Nicholas, and that the death of a large number of cannon fodders would also save Aquino a lot of money, so he turned from sadness to joy. Now, the Death Star Hotel has been surrounded by thousands of warships of the Star Pirates. There are still more than a dozen medium-sized spaceships of the Hotel Guards and more than a dozen spaceships of the Galaxy Freedom Army on the hotel's dock. Together with the defensive weapons outside the hotel, this is their only remaining defensive force. Xia Xingchen found Merc, the chief judge of the hotel, and the two quickly reached a consensus. The Galaxy Freedom Army and the Death Star Hotel formed an alliance to jointly fight against the attack of Aquinovi's Star Pirate group. Thousands of small spaceships and more than a dozen medium-sized warships of the Aquinovi Star Pirate group surrounded the Death Star Hotel, and Xia Xingchen led the high level of the Galaxy Freedom Army and the remaining 10 medium-sized warships to escape to the Death Star Hotel. Faced with a common powerful enemy and a life and death situation, she quickly reached an agreement with Judge Merc, and the two sides worked together to guard the Death Star Hotel and fight against the Aquinovi pirates. Aquinovi is now facing a big problem. Facing the tight defense of the hotel, he is somewhat worried. First of all, after hundreds of years of operation and expansion, the Death Star Hotel has very complete defense facilities. The thousands of laser cannons and countless close defense weapons outside the hotel are not just for show. In addition, the 20 surviving medium-sized battleships in the hotel and the 10 medium-sized battleships of the Galactic Freedom Army are also a considerable force. Chapter 247, Reconnaissance Mechas deployed. If they attacked by force, even if they could take down the hotel, most of his men would be lost. Obviously, Aquino was not a fool, and he would not do a losing business. On the other hand, Eva would not agree with him to do so. Once the Death Star Hotel was destroyed, it would not be worth it for the Galactic Empire military to send troops to protect it. Moreover, it was not in the interests of the Northern Empire if Aquino's strength was damaged too much. Therefore, Aquinovi's Star Pirates adopted Eva's suggestion, surrounded the hotel, but did not fight, and constantly consumed the confidence of the people inside the hotel. At the same time, they continuously sent small spaceships and mecha troops to harass the Death Star Hotel, consuming their energy and manpower. No matter how powerful you are always in tension and alert, and you will naturally be dragged down over time. Eva and her mecha divisions also participated in the harassment operations, and the mecha troops of the Death Star Hotel suffered heavy losses. However, Eva and Aquinovi felt very unhappy these days, because their mecha troops suffered a strong counterattack. In one battle, they lost dozens of mechas, and two C-class mecha divisions and several D-class mecha divisions from the north were killed in this battle. Aquinovi Star Pirates have been keeping an eye on the Death Star Sea Hotel. As soon as they find that Chief Judge Merc is dispatched, those C-class mecha divisions will quickly evacuate. After discovering this pattern, the hotel also made special arrangements. Chief Judge Merc returned shortly after he was dispatched. These C-class mecha divisions came out to harass again. Natalia, who had not taken action, and several C-class mecha divisions from the Death Star Sea Hotel went out together to wipe out these elite mecha divisions from the north. Eva was furious. She forced Aquinovi to send a small-scale force to continuously attack the Death Star Sea Hotel. The guards of the Death Star Sea Hotel were limited, and they were fighting continuously, which made them miserable. At this time, the Tangyang high-speed mecha cruiser had been flying in the asteroid belt for 5 days. During these 5 days, Miss Vivian fully demonstrated her talent in spacecraft driving. The huge cruiser in her hands was like a flexible off-road patrol car, driving at high speed in the asteroid belt full of gravel. The warship's ship guns and close-in weapon systems were also busy. When they encountered gravel that could not be avoided, they used lasers to clear the way. They made a big circle and went around to the back of the Death Star Sea Hotel, which was in the direction of the Death Star region. since Aquinovi deployed heavy troops in the direction of the Watchstar space station to prevent the hotel's people from escaping and intercepting reinforcement. The troops in this direction were much less. Tangyang, position 990, 786, 975. From the star map, it is 500 away from the Death Star Hotel. The concentration of mysterious particles here is 89, and the effective range of the detector is 100. No enemy forces have been found for the time being. The battleship engine power is 3% anchored, and the stealth system is activated. Zhang Yingying quickly reported the current location of the spacecraft. At this time, the captain's room of the Tangyang had been converted into a temporary combat command center and was connected to the cockpit at all times. The hull of the Tangyang was hidden behind a piece of space debris that was twice the size of the Tangyang cruiser. 4 metal anchor chains shot out from under the battleship, and the anchor heads were firmly inserted into the space debris, firmly fixing the hull. The battleship's thrusters stopped working, and the 2 battleship concealment systems on the hull began to work. This is also a mirage system that can change the color of the hull so that the battleship can blend into the background color of space, but it cannot distort light like the mirage system to achieve almost 100% stealth, but can only reduce the probability of being discovered. We have entered the war zone. All departments have entered the second level combat readiness state. Mech operators, please wait in the lounge. Move out the reconnaissance mechas. Li Xiaoyang, move out the Phantom 3 mechas. Tangyang 03, Bimoan, and Dark Knight Bat mechas, move out. The mech hatch of the Tangyang opened, and the figures of the 2 reconnaissance mechas appeared. After they flew out at high speed for dozens of kilometers, they separated in 2 different directions. The Mirage system was activated, and the figures of the 2 mechas disappeared into space. In the past few days, Xia Xingchen and Mr. Zhuo Leheng focused on upgrading and modifying the 3 reconnaissance mechas on the ship. These included 2 Dark Knight Bat mechas including Bimoan's mech and Major Li Xiaoyang's Phantom 3 reconnaissance mech. The focus of the modification was on the optimization of the thrusters and the optimization of the Mirage system. In particular, the Dark Knight Bat only had 1 Mirage generator, and its stealth performance was limited. Mr. Zhuo installed a parallel Mirage generator for them. Moreover, active jammers and enhanced passive detectors were installed on these 3 mechas. Active jammers can release powerful jamming signals in an instant, paralyzing the detectors of enemy warships and mechas for more than 10 seconds, giving the reconnaissance mechas time and opportunities to escape. This enhanced passive detector not only does not emit signals that cause the mechas to be discovered, but can absorb the signals of enemy detectors for its own use. Bimoan drove the Dark Knight Bat mecha with much improved performance, and flexibly passed through asteroids and rubble like a ghost in the night sky. The Mirage system improved by Mr. Zhuo Leheng has another advantage, that is, it can be used during the movement of mechas. Generally speaking, if the Mirage system of mecha moves at high speed, there will be large light fluctuations, which can be easily discovered. Mr. Zhuo Leheng rewrote the program of the Mirage system, so that the mecha can maintain a relatively stable stealth state even when moving at high speed. Although it cannot be 100% guaranteed not to be discovered by the naked eye, it is enough to deal with those detectors. As they were approaching the Death Star Hotel, they could already see the patrolling spaceships and mechas of the pirates. There were also a large number of reconnaissance satellites and sensors densely distributed in space. The Mirage system of the Dark Knight Bat mecha was fully activated, and it flew at a low speed around the entire outer encirclement for a whole day, collecting a large amount of reconnaissance data. Then it quickly evacuated, retreated to a safe distance, and flew back to the Tangyang at a high speed. Not long after, Major Li Xiaoyang's Phantom 3 reconnaissance mecha also returned. The 2 used the data storage device to copy the mecha's reconnaissance data and came to the Tangyang's temporary combat command center. Chapter 248 discussing countermeasures. Bimoan and Li Xiaoyang drove 2 modified and upgraded reconnaissance mechas to complete the reconnaissance mission of the Death Star Sea Hotel. The 2 of them copied the reconnaissance data of the mechas with data storage devices and came to the temporary command center on the Tangyang ship. Zhang Yingying took over the storage devices and connected them to the data interface of the Tangyang main control optical computer, and the data transmission began. After a few minutes, the data transmission was completed. The optical computer began to perform high-speed calculations, and after more than 10 minutes, the operation of the optical computer ended. The 8 holographic image generators in the captain's room projected a holographic 3-dimensional star map in the center of the captain's room. These star maps were synthesized based on the previous star map information and the data collected by the two reconnaissance mechas after integration by the central optical computer. At this time, the people in the temporary command center included Princess Xingchen, the old housekeeper Xia Xingchen, Captain Van Horn, Captain Heinrich, plus Zhang Yingying, and Major Li Xiaoyang. Li Xiaoyang introduced the situation facing the Death Star C Hotel to everyone. Based on the holographic star map, the Death Star Hotel is now surrounded by nearly 2,000 small spaceships, 20 medium-sized warships, and 30 large supply spaceships. The forces in the directions of several main shipping routes are particularly dense. Other areas with weak defenses have been deployed with a large number of magnetic bombs, motion sensors, and space torpedoes. It can be said that it is surrounded. However, there are still signs of exchange of fire from the direction of the Death Star Hotel, indicating that the hotel has not fallen. The index of the mysterious particles in the starfield here is 98, and the maximum effective range of the laser is only 60 kilometers. Therefore, the Star Pirates set up an encirclement at a distance of 65 to 90 kilometers from the Death Star Hotel. I tried to sneak in, but it was difficult. The density of the opponent's mechas and patrol aircraft was too high. I would be discovered and surrounded if I moved halfway into the encirclement. I'm just a D-level mecha division. I can't kill it with my strength and mecha performance. And the latest trend is that some spaceships have begun to gather purposefully. I feel that they are going to launch a large-scale attack. This is the situation I have mastered. Major Li Xiaoyang ended the situation report. Yingying, tell me what you think. Princess Crossing said to Zhang Yingying. According to previous intelligence and Major Li's description just now, there is only one small force with such a large number and scale, and that is the Equinovi pirates. Judging from the current situation, the Death Star C Hotel has been surrounded. The Equinovi pirates dared to surround the hotel so blatantly, which means that other pirate forces outside the Death Star region, especially the Galaxy Freedom Army, have been almost wiped out. Even if there are survivors, they should be hiding inside the hotel at this time. The reason why the hotel has not fallen, I guess, is because the hotel still retains a certain amount of armed forces, and the pirates are afraid to use force, and the hotel being destroyed will not benefit the pirates in any way. Everyone nodded in agreement with her opinion. Zhang Yingying went on, it has been 6 days since we set out, and it is estimated that reinforcement from the 3rd Fleet have arrived at the Watchster space station. They will be here to launch an attack in 3 to 4 days. All we can do is wait. We can lurk here and wait for the arrival of the main force. But we can't sit idle. In the next few days, I would like to trouble Major Li Xiaoyang and other scouts to set up signal, relay devices and detectors between our Tangyang and the battlefield. Once we discover that the 3rd Fleet has launched a general attack on the Death Star Hotel, our ships should intervene in the battlefield from behind, disrupt the enemy's defensive formation, and find a way to cut off the retreat of key figures in the Equinovi pirates. Captain Zhang Yingying, have you considered what we should do if the Death Star Hotel falls within these 3 days? By then, everything we do now will be in vain. Star Princess Xingchen raised her concerns. I've thought about this. We can send a mecha to sneak in and get in touch with the Death Star Hotel. This will give the people inside some hope and build confidence. On the other hand, when the reinforcement launch a general attack, the hotel can seize the opportunity to launch a counterattack, cooperating inside and outside, to deal a fatal blow to the Equinovi Star Pirates. However, whether our mecha division is capable of breaking through such a blockade requires consulting professionals. Mr. Hu, what do you think? Hu Rongsheng thought for a while and said, in my opinion, to break through such a blockade, you need a mecha division of at least sea level or above, and the mecha must be a nuclear powered engine mecha. It is said that if I go, it will be a sure thing, but the problem is that Princess Star is here. I don't feel at ease leaving the princess, but it is even more dangerous to take the princess to a dangerous place. So, I can't go. Let me go. Lieutenant Colonel Heinrich volunteered. No, your mecha is not powerful enough. It's not a nuclear powered mecha, and the energy can't last that long. Why don't you let Knight Hao Cheng and Major Xia Xingchen try? Their mechas are nuclear powered, and they are strong enough. Captain Van Horn expressed his opinion. Mr. Hu, which of these two mecha masters do you think is more suitable? Princess Xingchen asked. My suggestion is to let Major Xia Xingchen go. Because Knight Hao Cheng's mecha is not known for its speed, and is not suitable for long-range high-speed advances. Moreover, it lacks long-range attack means, and can only passively take a beating, and Major Xia Xingchen's Dragon Rider mecha has a very high flying speed and powerful attack firepower. Moreover, his driving skills are proficient, and his ability is not much worse than that of a Class B mecha master, so it is very appropriate for him to go. This Princess Xingchen hesitated, because this was a very dangerous task after all. The mecha division might face the interception of hundreds of mechas and dozens of small spacecraft, and might never come back. Your Highness, I understand your feelings very well. You must be worried about Knight Xia Xingchen. But he is indeed the most suitable. Knight Hao Cheng's mecha performance is indeed not suitable for such a task. Moreover, Brother Hao Cheng is not very good at talking. It's okay to let him go into battle to kill the enemy, but it's a bit difficult to communicate and coordinate. Therefore, we can only let Xia Xingchen complete this task. Although Zhang Yingying was also very reluctant, she still made up her mind to express the most rational view. Princess Xingchen nodded. Then let's see what Xingchen thinks first. Captain Van Horn connected Xia Xingchen's personal communication terminal. Major Xia Xingchen, please come to the captain's room. There is an important task. Chapter 249 Going Alone. Xia Xingchen came to the captain's room, and Zhang Yingying told Xia Xingchen about the current battlefield situation in the Death Battlefield Hotel and the mission he was about to perform. Xingchen, how is it? Are you sure? Don't force yourself, Princess Xingchen asked with concern. Please rest assured, Princess, I promise to complete the mission. Xia Xingchen said firmly. There is no time to lose. Let's set off immediately. Zhang Yingying, as the commander-in-chief of the battle, gave the order. Xia Xingchen came to the mecha cabin and personally made the final adjustments to the mecha before departure. The risk of the space station is no less than that in the atmosphere, and any negligence can be fatal. At this time, Princess Xingchen came to the mecha maintenance cabin. Seeing this, Xia Xingchen stood up to greet her. Xingchen, promise me that you must ensure your own safety. If things are impossible, give up the mission immediately and run away immediately. I don't want you to get into trouble. As she spoke, the usually strong Princess Crossing shed tears, and her tears floated in the air like pearls. She rushed forward and hugged Xia Xingchen tightly, and then, when he wasn't paying attention, she secretly kissed him on the lips. Xia Xingchen was stunned. The princess kiss will bring good luck to the night. This is Jaina's first kiss. Xingchen, take care, Jaina said, and turned to leave the cockpit. A few hours later, Xia Xingchen sat on the Dragon Rider mech and said goodbye to his comrades one by one on the communicator. Tangyang 01, Xia Xingchen, Dragon Rider mech, let's go. A mecha launch hatch under the Tangyang opened, and the Dragon Rider Flying Admiral mecha was ejected from the warship by the electromagnetic catapult. The red light thrusters behind the Dragon Rider Flying Admiral mecha instantly ejected red particles, and the mecha turned into a red light and flew off into the distance. At this time, in the cockpit, captain's room, and mecha maintenance cabin of the Tangyang, everyone solemnly saluted in the direction where Xia Xingchen left. A few hours later, a specially modified Dark Knight Bad mecha was also equipped. Tangyang 03, Bimoan, Dark Knight Bad mecha, let's go. A super Dark Knight Bad mecha, which is twice the size of an ordinary mecha, was ejected, and Bimarwen was sitting on it. A battery pack was added to his mecha. At the same time, a large flight assistance device was mounted on the outside of the mecha, which consisted of 4 battery packs and 4 thrusters. Bimarwen's mission was to quietly leave the Tangyang and go to the channel leading to the Death Star domain on Watchstar, waiting for and contacting the reinforcement or the Watchstar S0 to Space Fleet for reconnaissance. This was also a very dangerous mission, and his mecha's energy could only last for about 10 days. If he did not encounter other spaceships after 10 days, Ma Wen would become a floating corpse in space. However, as a scout, he had received training in this area, so he volunteered. Xia Xingchen left the Tangyang, but he did not fly directly to the Death Star Sea Hotel. Instead, he drove eastward at high speed for more than 10 hours, stopped on a huge space rock to rest for a while, meditated for more than 5 hours, and ate something, before turning to fly to the Death Star Sea Hotel. At this time, his direction was closer to the direction of Watchstar, and it was very far away from the Tangyang, so there was no need to worry that the Star Pirates would expand the search range after being attacked, and implicate the Tangyang. These days, Mr. Zuo Lehung has not been idle. He has given Xia Xingchen a lot of advice, one of which is to make full use of the space of the mecha. After Xia Xingchen's Dragon Rider Flying General mecha was modified with nuclear power, the flywheel disc behind the mecha became a decoration. In order to reduce the weight of the mecha, he removed the battery pack inside, and the optical computer that specifically controls the floating gun. Xia Xingchen's plan is to find suitable materials, rebuild a few floating guns, and completely abandon the flywheel disc. Mr. Zuo carefully studied the structure of the Dragon Rider Flying General. Under his suggestion, Xia Xingchen reused the flywheel disc. First, Xia Xingchen installed 36 macro anti-mech missiles on it. The flywheel is divided into 4 zones, and the armor of each zone can be opened to both sides to reveal the macro missiles inside. The uses of these missiles are not very different. 24 of them are equipped with armor-piercing warheads, and the other 6 missiles are equipped with high-heat combustion warheads and 6 smoke flash warheads. The high-heat combustion warhead is equipped with a highly effective incendiary agent, which can burn the armor of mechas and spacecrafts. Once it is touched, it can continuously release extremely high heat, even melting alloy armor, and the smoke flash bomb can instantly release a large smoke group with a diameter of nearly 20 meters accompanied by a strong flash. The special powder in this warhead will also affect the radar wave and wave sensing system, and the flash can temporarily disable the opponent's optical imaging system and laser guidance system. In addition to installing these 36 macro anti-mech missiles, there is still a little space on the flywheel, where Mr. Zuo Lehung installed an improved mirage system. The appearance design of the Dragon Rider Flying General mech determines that this is not a mech that can obtain superior stealth performance. The purpose of installing the mirage system is not to make the mech completely invisible, but to reduce the distance at which it can be detected by various detectors. For example, under normal conditions, the effective distance at which the detector can detect the mech is 4,000 kilometers, but after installing this mirage system, the detection distance will be reduced to within 500 kilometers, which is already within the range of the mech's laser cannon. At this distance, even if it is discovered, it is too late. This is not the case. Just 2 days after the modification, this mirage system came in handy. Because of the dense mysterious particles here, Xia Xingchen was almost discovered when he was almost 30 kilometers away from the Star Pirates. The reason for choosing this location to break through is that Xia Xingchen found that there are many small warships here, only one medium-sized warship, and there are relatively few space torpedoes and magnetic bombs. Choosing to break through from here, he only needs to face a dozen mechas and several small spaceships at a time. Just plunging into the opponent's spaceship pile can catch the pirates off guard. Moreover, the pirates are densely packed, and they also have to consider the problem of accidental injuries. If they rush into a pile of space torpedoes or magnetic bombs, it will be a huge trouble. If those things explode in space, the fragments of the explosion will have a huge impact on the mecha. Xia Xingchen first targeted a medium-sized cruiser. This warship looked old enough, with a history of almost 100 years. This is the kind of warship that was retired for many years, and then converted to civilian use as a transport ship. Then it was captured by the pirates and simply modified and repaired and used as a warship again. Looking at the various patches and various types of naval guns on it, Xia Xingchen smiled happily. Chapter 250, halfway out. The old-fashioned medium-sized battleship that appeared in front of Xia Xingchen was the flagship of nearly 100 small spaceships in this large star region. Ancient military books said, shoot the horse first when shooting a person, and capture the king first when capturing a thief. The position of this medium-sized battleship is very satisfactory. Probably because of fear of death, The commander of the other side let the spaceship dock at the outermost edge of the encirclement, about 90 kilometers away from the Death Star C Hotel, so that if the battle situation is unfavorable, he can escape at the first time. This is already an instinct of the Star Pirates. There are only 2 small spaceships protecting its periphery. The commander of the Star Pirates did not expect the enemy to appear from behind, and such a formation facilitated Xia Xingchen's sneak attack. He came to a place 30 kilometers behind the medium-sized battleship and raised the flowing fire mecha rifle. The commander of the Star Pirate battleship was bored and napping in the cockpit of the spaceship. The blockade mission of more than 10 days is boring, but it is also good not to go forward to die. Suddenly, a rapid and sharp red alarm sounded in the ship. High energy warning behind the battleship, the subordinates shouted. At this time, a red dot appeared on the screen of the battleship 20 kilometers behind. The optical image detector of the battleship showed that it was a mighty mecha, with its weapon pointed at them. Ignite the engine, dodge at high speed. The enemy captain shouted hysterically. The pirates were very poor, so they were very frugal. Most of the time, when they were not fighting, the engines of the battleships were turned off. They had no idea that something like this would happen here. But it was too late. A beam of orange-yellow plasma tore the sky and cut the pirates' battleship in half from top to bottom. This shooting angle was specially chosen by Xia Xingchen. There were also 8 small spaceships destroyed along the route of the plasma. A series of explosions and flames alarmed the other pirates. They thought they were attacked by a large military force, especially since the command ship had been destroyed. The first reaction of these pirates, who were put together by a mob, was to ignite the engine and flee. Xia Xingchen took advantage of the chaos of the pirates and followed the route cleared by the plasma cannon, with the mecha engine fully turned on, killing all the way in. However, he was not idle at all when he was moving forward. The flowing fire mecha rifle in his hand and the 6 floating guns behind him fired continuously, and the small spaceships closest to him were all in trouble. Every shot of Xia Xingchen was aimed at the cockpit and the spaceship thrusters. The pirates were caught off guard. When the Mechas on some outer spaceships were ready to go, Xia Xingchen had already gone far away. As soon as the patrolling Mechas entered Xia Xingchen's range, they were called out one by Xia Xingchen. Those who were carrying out the blockade mission here were all scattered soldiers, and there was not even a D-level mecha division. If there was no special mission, Xia Xingchen would have wanted to fight here for a while before leaving. At this time, in front of the Death Star C Hotel, that is, in the direction of the Watchstar space station, a huge battle was taking place. This battle was the largest battle since the pirates besieged the Death Star C Hotel. The pirates first invested 2,000 mechas. Judge Merc was forced to lead 500 mechas to meet the enemy. It took more than 10 hours of fighting to eliminate all the pirates. As a result, Judge Merc had just gone back to rest when he found that the other side had gathered more than 5,000 mechas to launch another attack. The Death Star Hotel sent out the remaining 3,000 mechas to fight, half of which were mechas of the Galaxy Freedom Army. The pirates had more mechas, while the mecha divisions of the Death Star Hotel were of higher quality. The two sides fought fiercely. In front of the 2 mecha groups, a large space was cleared, and 2 mechas, one red and one white, collided fiercely in the air. This was a battle between the main generals of both sides, and the minions all hid far away, because they knew that once they intervened in the battle of such a high-level mecha division, they would surely die. The white mecha of the 2 warring parties was the Ice Queen mecha that Xia Xingchen tailored for Natalia. The red mecha on the opposite side was the Harpy Banshee mecha driven by the mecha division Eva from the north. Harpy Banshee mecha, height 5 meters. Parameters, strength 28, agility 31, armor 28, speed 33. This is an excellent speed type melee mecha. It has a conventional power engine. The thrusters are all white light thrusters, and behind it is a huge retractable flying wing. The end of each winglet of the flying wing is a miniature white light thruster. Therefore, its speed and maneuverability are very superior, and it performs very well in space and the atmosphere. The weapon system of the Harpy Banshee, the arms are 2 light swords, the mecha's feet can rotate 360 degrees, and each toe is a 3-handled light retractable blade. In addition, there are 4 laser rapid fire cannons at the front and back of the mecha. The performance of the two mechas is similar, but Natalia is a C-class mecha master and Eva is a B-class mecha master, so Eva has the advantage on the scene. But Natalia awakened the ice and snow power, and her strength surpassed that of ordinary C-class mecha masters, so she can barely hold on, but the mecha has been injured. The main reason is that due to the light shield system, her mecha power is only 30%, and the mecha has issued a yellow energy alarm. Xia Xingchen had come to a place less than 30 kilometers away from the Death Star Hotel at this time, and had entered the scope of the Death Star Hotel. He saw the fierce battle in the distance, but because he could not distinguish between the enemy and us, he might be attacked by both sides if he intervened rashly. Therefore, Xia Xingchen did not choose to join the battle at the first time, but circled along the periphery of the battlefield. There were spaceships and mechas of the pirates here, so he was not polite at all. While shooting, he tried to call Chen Tingting. Chen Tingting was at the command and control center of the Death Star Hotel at this time, assisting Chief Judge Merc, who was on the front line to command the battle. Suddenly, the personal terminal in her hand rang. Chen Tingting was very surprised. This was her private number, and few people knew it. She answered the call and a surprised expression suddenly appeared on her face. Xingchen, is that you? Tingting. To make a long story short, I'm here to help. The reinforcement will arrive in a few days. Now quickly enter my identification code into your system and let me help you. As he said, a string of codes was transmitted to Chen Tingting's personal terminal. Okay, Chen Tingting quickly agreed and handed the code to the people at the Death Star Hotel's command center. They quickly entered the identification code of the Dragon Rider mech into the system. After a few dozen seconds, nearly 1/3 of the thousands of red dots on the mech screen turned green, and some mech masters at the Death Star Hotel also found a green dot appearing behind the enemy. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.